CHAPTER 1 of Book 2 of Rhetoric. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Geoffrey Edwards. Rhetoric by Aristotle. Translated by Thomas Taylor. Chapter 1 of Book 2. Such, therefore, are the particulars from which it is requisite to exhort and dissuade, to blame and praise, to accuse and defend. And such likewise are the opinions and propositions which are useful in procuring credibility in these. For concerning these, and from these, enthymemes about each genus of orations are peculiarly derived. Since, however, the rhetorical art is for the sake of judgment (for the auditors of orations judge of consultations, and justice is judgment), it is necessary that the orator should not only direct his attention to the oration, so as to consider how it may be demonstrative and credible, but he should also show himself to be worthy of belief, and dispose his auditor to become a judge. For it is of great consequence in procuring belief, especially indeed in counsels, and afterwards in judgments, that the speaker should appear to be properly qualified, and that he should be well affected towards the auditors. And besides this, if the auditors also are properly disposed. That the speaker, therefore, should appear to be properly qualified, is more useful in counsels than in judgments. But for the hearer to be well disposed, is more useful in judgments. For the same things do not appear to those that love and hate, nor to those that are irascible, and those that are mild, but either they appear entirely different, or different in magnitude. For to the friend, he concerning whom he forms the judgment, will not appear to have acted unjustly, or will appear to have acted so in a small degree. But to him who hates, the contrary will take place. And to him who desires, and is in good hope of possessing what he desires, if that which is to come is pleasant, it also appears that it will be, and that it will be good. But to him who has no desire, and no expectation of a thing, the contrary will take place. There are three causes, therefore, through which men become worthy of belief. For so many are the things through which we believe, besides demonstrations, and these are prudence, virtue, and benevolence. For men are false in what they say, or in the counsels they give, either on account of all these, or on account of some one of these. For either they do not think rightly through imprudence, or they do not speak what appears to be true in consequence of their depravity, or they are prudent and worthy, but not benevolent. Hence it happens that those do not give the best counsels who know how to give them, and these are the only things through which they fail. It is necessary, therefore, that he who appears to possess all these should be considered by his auditors as worthy of belief. Whence, therefore, men may appear to be prudent and worthy, must be derived from the divisions of the virtues. For from the same things through which a man renders himself prudent and worthy, he may also cause another to become so. Concerning benevolence, however, and friendship, we must now speak, in discussing what pertains to the passions. But the passions are those things on account of which men being changed differ in their judgments, and to which pleasure and pain are consequent. The passions, therefore, are such as anger, pity, fear, and other things of this kind, and the contraries to these. It is necessary, however, to give a threefold division to the particulars about each. I say, for instance, about anger, we should consider how men are disposed when they are angry, what the things are at which they are accustomed to be angry, and what the quality is of the things which are the subjects of their anger. For if we only possess a knowledge of one or two, but not of all these, it will be impossible to excite anger in the auditors, and in a similar manner in the other passions. As therefore, in what has been before said, we have delivered appropriate propositions, we shall likewise do the same in considering the passions, and divide them after the same manner. CHAPTER II. Let anger, therefore, be the appetite in man of apparent revenge, in conjunction with pain, in consequence of a seeming neglect or contempt of himself, or of some one belonging to him. If, therefore, anger is this, it is necessary that he who is angry should always be angry with some particular person, as for instance with Cleon, but not with man, and that he is angry because Cleon has done, or intended to do something to himself, or to some one belonging to him. It is also necessary that a certain pleasure arising from the hope of revenge should be consequent to all anger. For it is pleasant for a man to fancy that he shall obtain the object of his desire. But no one aspires after those things which appear to him to be impossible. He who is angry, however, aspires after things which it is possible for him to obtain. Hence it is well said by Achilles concerning anger that, Anger increases in the mortal breast, sweeter than trickling honey to the taste. For a certain pleasure is consequent to anger both on this account, and because the thoughts of those who are angry are entirely employed on revenge. The phantasy therefore, or imagination, which is then ingenerated in the soul, produces pleasure, in the same manner as the imagination which is ingenerated in dreams. Since, however, neglect is the energy of opinion about that which appears to deserve no regard (for we conceive that both good and evil, and what contributes to these, are worthy of attention, but such things as are nothing, or very trifling, we conceive to be of no worth whatever), hence there are three species of neglect, viz. Contempt, insolence, and contumely. For that which men despise, they neglect, since they despise that which they conceive to be of no worth, and those things which are of no worth they neglect. He also who insults another person appears to despise him. For insult is an impediment to the will of another person. Not that he who offers the insult may derive a certain advantage himself, but that he may prevent the person insulted from deriving it. Since, therefore, he does not expect to derive any advantage himself, he neglects the other person, for it is evident that he does not apprehend any injury will accrue to himself from the insult, since if he did, he would be afraid, and would not neglect the person he insults, nor any advantage to the person insulted, which deserves to be mentioned. For if he did, he would be anxious to make him his friend. He also who acts contumeliously towards another neglects him, for contumely is to injure and pain another person in those things in which shame befalls the sufferer, and this not that any thing else may be done to him than what is done, but that he may receive pleasure from the act. For those who return an injury do not act contumeliously, but take revenge. The cause, however, of pleasure to those that calumniate is this, that they fancy they excel in a greater degree by acting ill. Hence, young men, and those that are rich, are contumelious, for they fancy that they thus acquire a superiority to others. But ignominy pertains to contumely, and he who disgraces another neglects him. For that which is of no worth has no honour either of evil or good. Hence Achilles when angry says, The affront my honour stains, while he my valour's guerdon thus detains. And disgraced, dishonoured, like the vilest slave. As being enraged on account of these things, men also think it fit that they should be greatly honoured by those who are inferior to them in birth, in power, in virtue, and in short, in that in which they very much excel another person. As for instance, the rich man excels the poor man in money. The rhetorician excels in speaking him who is unable to speak. The governor him who is governed. And he who fancies himself worthy to command, him who deserves to be commanded. Hence it is said, Great is the wrath of Jove descended kings. And, For though we deem the short-lived fury past, 'tis sure the mighty will revenge at last. For men are indignant on account of their transcendency. Men, likewise, think that they ought to be greatly honoured by those by whom any one should think they ought to be benefited. But these are such as they have benefited, or do benefit, either they themselves, or some one belonging to them, or such as they do wish, or have wished to benefit. It is now, therefore, manifest from these things how men are disposed when they are angry, and with whom, and from what causes they are angry. For they are angry, indeed, when they are aggrieved. For he who is aggrieved desires something, whether he is aggrieved by any opposition directly made against him, as when a man is prevented from drinking that is thirsty, or if an opposition is not directly made against him, yet it appears to be made indirectly, or if any one acts contrary to him, or does not co-operate with him, or if anything else disturbs him. Thus disposed, from all these circumstances he is angry. Hence the sick, the poor, those that are in love, those that are thirsty, and in short, those that desire anything, and do not act rightly, are disposed to be angry, and are easily provoked, and especially with those that neglect their present condition. Thus, for instance, the sick are angry with those that neglect them in things pertaining to their disease, the poor with those that neglect them in things pertaining to their poverty, warriors with those that neglect them in warlike affairs, and lovers with those that neglect them in amatory concerns, and in a similar manner in other things. For each is prepared to exercise his anger against those that neglect them, by the inherent passion. Farther still, men are likewise disposed to be angry when things happen contrary to their expectation. For that which is very much contrary to opinion is more grievous, just as what is very much contrary to opinion produces delight, if that which is wished for is accomplished. Hence also seasons and times, and dispositions and ages render it apparent what kind of persons are easily disposed to anger, and when, and where, and that when they are most in these circumstances, they are most easily excited to anger. Men likewise are angry with those that laugh at, deride, and mock them, for by so acting they insult them. They are also angry with those that offend them in such things as are indications of contumely. But it is necessary that these should be things of such a kind as are not directed to any other end, and are of no advantage to those that do them. for they appear to be done solely through contumely. Men also are angry with those that defame and despise things to which they are most devoted. Thus, for instance, those that are ambitious of excelling in philosophy are angry with those who speak contemptuously of philosophy. Those who pay great attention to the form and beauty of the body are angry with those that despise it, and in a similar manner in other things. This also is much more the case, if they suspect that they either do not at all possess these things, or do not firmly possess them, or do not appear to do so. But when they fancy they very much excel in those things for which they are reviled, they pay no attention to the scoffs of others. Men are likewise angry with their friends, more than with those that are not their friends. For they think it is more proper that they should be benefited by them than not. They are also angry with those who have been accustomed to honour, or pay attention to them, if they no longer associate with them as formerly ; for they fancy that by so acting they are despised by them. They are likewise angry with those that do not return the kindness which they have received, nor make an equal recompense, and also with those who act contrary to them, if they are their inferiors. For all such things appear to be attended with contempt, the one indeed as of inferiors, but the other as by inferiors. They are also angry in a greater degree, if they are despised by men of no account. For anger was supposed by us to arise from undeserved neglect or contempt. But it is fit that inferiors should not despise their superiors. Men likewise are angry with their friends, if they do not speak or act well, and still more so, if they do the contraries of these. Also, if they are not sensible of their wants, as was the case with the Plexippus of Antipho, when he was angry with Meleager. For it is a sign of neglect not to be sensible of the wants of a friend, since those things are not concealed from us to which we pay attention. They are likewise angry with those that rejoice in their misfortunes, and in short with those who are not at all concerned when they are in adversity. For this is an indication either of hostility or neglect. Also with those who pay no attention to them when they are aggrieved, on which account they are angry with those who are the messengers of evil. And likewise with those who willingly hear or see their maladies. For in this case such persons resemble either those who neglect them, or their enemies. For friends condole with their friends in their afflictions, and all men grieve on surveying their own maladies. They are likewise angry with 5 kinds of persons, by whom they are neglected, with those with whom they stand in competition for honour, with those they admire, with those by whom they wish to be admired, with those whom they reverence, and with those by whom they are reverenced. For if they are neglected by any of these, they are in a greater degree angry. They are also angry with those who despise them, by injuring their parents, children, wives, and such as are in subjection to them, and whom it would be disgraceful in them not to assist. Likewise with those that are ungrateful. For neglect or contempt from these is unbecoming. They are also angry with such as employ irony and dissimulation towards those who are seriously employed, for irony pertains to contempt. Likewise with those that benefit others, but not themselves. For this also indicates contempt, not to think a man deserving of that which all other persons are thought to deserve. Forgetfulness also is productive of anger, as for instance of names, though it is but a trifling thing. For forgetfulness seems to be an indication of neglect, since oblivion is produced from negligence, and negligence is inattention. And thus we have shown who the persons are by whom anger is excited, how they are disposed, and from what causes others are angry with them. It is likewise evident that an orator ought to frame his auditors to such a temper as they are in when they are angry, and show that the opponents are guilty of those things which excite anger, and that they are such persons as men are accustomed to be angry with. CHAPTER 3. Since, however, the being angry is contrary to the being placable, and anger is contrary to placability, the disposition of those that are placable must be considered, who those persons are to whom they conduct themselves with placability, and through what causes they become so. Let placability then be a remission and suppression of anger. If, therefore, men are angry with those that neglect them, but neglect is a voluntary thing, it is evident that they will be placable to those who do none of these things, or do them unwillingly, or appear not to have done them voluntarily. They will likewise be placable to those who wish to have done the contrary to what they have done, and also to those who are such towards themselves, as they are towards others, for no one appears to neglect himself. Likewise to those who acknowledge their faults, and repent of them, for considering the pain which they feel as a punishment for what they have done, they cease to be angry. But this is evident from what takes place in punishing servants. For we punish in a greater degree such of them as deny the fault, and contradict us, but we cease to be angry with such of them as acknowledge they are punished justly. The cause, however, of this is that it is impudence to deny what is manifest, and impudence is neglect and contempt. We feel no shame, therefore, towards those whom we very much despise. Men are placable likewise to those who humble themselves towards them, and do not contradict them, for thus they appear to acknowledge that they are inferior to them. But those that are inferior are afraid, and no one who is afraid is negligent. But that anger ceases towards those who humble themselves, is evident from dogs who do not bite those that prostrate themselves. Men also are placable to those that act seriously, when they are acting seriously themselves. For thus they appear to be thought by them worthy of attention, and not to be despised. Likewise to those who, if they have injured them in any respect, are afterwards more grateful to them. Also to those that beg and entreat, for such persons are more humble. And to those that are neither contumelious, nor scoffers, nor neglectful either of any person, or at least not of the worthy, or of such as they themselves are. And in short, men become placable from causes contrary to those which excite to anger. They are likewise placable to those whom they fear and reverence. For so long as they are thus disposed towards them, they are not angry with them. For it is impossible at one and the same time to be angry with and afraid of a man. With those also who have done any thing through anger, they are either not angry, or they are angry in a less degree. For such persons do not appear to have acted from neglect, since no one who is angry is neglectful. For neglect is unattended with pain, but anger is accompanied with pain. They are likewise placable to those that revere them, because reverence is contrary to contempt. It is also evident that men are placable when they are in a disposition contrary to anger, as when they are in sport, when they are laughing, when they are at a festival, when they are successful, when they perform any business happily, when they are full, and in short, when they are without pain, experience a pleasure unattended with indolence, and are in good hope. They are likewise placable to those by whom they have not been molested for a long time, and through whom they have not been excited to recent anger ; for time appeases anger. Vengeance also formerly inflicted on another person has the power of appeasing a greater anger conceived against some one. Hence, Philocrates answered well, when a certain person said, the people being enraged, why do you not defend yourself? He replied, not yet. But when will you? When I see another person condemned. For men become placable when they have consumed their anger upon another person, as it happened to Ergophilus, whom the people absolved, though they were more enraged against him than against Callisthenes, whom the day before they had condemned to death. Men also are placable towards those whom they have convicted, and likewise when they see those that are angry suffering a greater evil from their anger than they occasion to others ; for they conceive that such a one is punished for his anger. Also if they think that they themselves have acted unjustly and suffer justly ; for anger is not excited against that which is just ; since in this case they do not any longer fancy that they suffer undeservedly. But anger was said by us to be this, viz. To arise from a conception of unmerited contempt. Hence it is necessary that offenders should first be punished by words ; for slaves also, when thus punished, are less indignant. Those likewise are placable, who conceive that persons on whom they inflict punishment will not perceive that they are punished by them. For anger is excited against individuals, as is evident from its definition. Hence Ulysses, in his speech to Polyphemus, rightly calls himself Ulysses the subverter of cities ; as if he could not have avenged the injuries of Polyphemus, unless he made him sensible who it was that inflicted the vengeance, and for what it was inflicted. It follows, therefore, that we are not angry with those that are not sensible, nor any longer with those that are dead, because we fancy they have suffered the extremity of evils, and will not be pained by, or sensible of our revenge, which is the object of desire of those that are angry. Hence it is well said by the poet respecting Hector, who wished that the anger of Achilles towards him might cease when he was dead, On the deaf earth his rage was spent in vain. It is evident, therefore, that those who wish to render others placable must derive their arguments from these places. For those whose anger is to be appeased must be rendered such persons as we have described. But those persons with whom others are angry must be shown by the orator to be such as are to be feared, or that they are worthy of reverence, or that they have deserved well of them, or that they injured them unwillingly, or that they are very much grieved for what they have done. CHAPTER 4. Let us now show who those persons are that are the objects of love and hatred, and why they are so, defining for this purpose what friendship is, and friendly love. Let, therefore, friendly love be defined to be the wish that such things as are conceived to be good may fall to the lot of some one for his own sake, and not for the sake of him who forms the wish, and also the endeavour of him who forms the wish to procure such goods to the utmost of his power. But he is a friend who loves and is reciprocally beloved, and those persons conceive themselves to be friends, who think they are thus disposed towards each other. These things, therefore, being supposed, it is necessary that a friend should be one who reciprocally rejoices in the good which befalls another person, and is naturally pained when that person is aggrieved. And this not on account of any thing else, but on account of the person himself. For all men rejoice when they obtain the object of their wishes, but are aggrieved if the contrary takes place. So that pains and pleasures are an indication of good and bad wishes. those likewise are friends to each other to whom the same things are good and evil. And also those who are friends and enemies to the same persons and things. For these must necessarily wish the same things, so that he who wishes the same things to another as to himself appears to be a friend to that person. Men also love those that have either benefited them, or those that are under their care, or if their kindness to them has been great, or has been cheerfully exerted, or seasonably, and for their own sake, and also such as they think are willing to benefit others. They likewise love the friends of their friends, and those that love the same person that they love, and who are beloved by those who are beloved by them, who are likewise enemies to those to whom they are enemies, and who hate those whom they hate, and are hated by those who are hated by them. For the same thing appears to be good to all these, and to themselves, so that they wish the same good to them as to themselves, which was the definition of a friend. Farther still, men love those who are beneficent to them in pecuniary affairs, and in those things which regard their safety. Hence, they honour liberal, brave, and just men, and they consider those to be such who do not live on the property of others. But men of this description are those that live by their own labour, and among these are those that live by agriculture, and of others, especially manual artificers. They also love those that are temperate, because they are not unjust. And for the same reason they love those that lead a quiet life, unmolested by business. We likewise love those to whom we wish to be friends, if they appear to wish to be our friends. But men of this description are such as are good according to virtue, and are celebrated either by all men, or by the best of men, or by those who are admired by us, or by those who admire us. Farther still, men love those who are agreeable companions, and with whom they can pass the day pleasantly. But men of this description are such as are ingenuous, who do not reprove the faults of others, and are not studious of contention nor morose, for all such persons are pugnacious, and those that are pugnacious appear to wish things contrary to the wishes of friends. They likewise love those that have elegant manners, and who can give and take a jest, for in both these men strive to be facetious, as well those that are able to bear raillery, as those that are able to rail elegantly themselves. They also love those who praise the good things which they enjoy, and especially such among these as they are fearful should not be present to themselves. Likewise, those who are neat in their appearance, in their dress, and in every thing pertaining to the whole of their life. And those who neither reprobate the faults committed by others, nor benefits conferred on them. For both are attended with defamation. They likewise love those that neither remember injuries, nor are observers of the faults of others, but are easily reconciled. For such as they think they are towards others, they also think they will be towards themselves. They likewise love those that are not addicted to slander, and who know no evil, but only good, either of their neighbours or them. For a good man acts in this manner. Also those that do not resist them when they are angry, or seriously employed, for such like persons are pugnacious. Likewise those that are seriously disposed towards them, as for instance such as admire them, consider them to be worthy, are delighted with them, and are especially thus affected in things in which they themselves particularly wish to be admired, or to appear to be worthy, or pleasant persons. Men also love those that resemble themselves, and are engaged in the same pursuits, provided they are no impediment to them, and their subsistence is not derived from the same profession. For thus what Hesiod says will take place, viz. That the potter envies the potter. They likewise love those who desire things of which it is at the same time possible for them to be partakers. For if not, the same thing which we have just noticed will thus happen. They also love those towards whom they are so disposed as not to be ashamed of things which are base only according to opinion, and towards whom they are ashamed of things which are in reality base. And likewise those by whom they are ambitious to be honoured, or by whom they wish to be emulated, and not to be envied. For these they either love, or wish to be their friends. They likewise love those with whom they co operate in the acquisition of some good, lest greater evil should hereafter befall themselves. And also those who similarly love their friends when absent and present, on which account all men love those who are thus disposed towards the dead. And in short, they love those who very much love their friends, and do not forsake them. For among the number of good men, they especially love those who are good in what relates to friendship. They likewise love those who do not act with dissimulation towards them. But men of this description are such as are not ashamed to speak of their own defects. For we have already observed that towards friends we should be ashamed of things which relate to opinion, i.e. which are base in opinion only, and not in reality. If, therefore, he who is ashamed has not friendly love, he who is not ashamed will resemble one who has friendly love. Men, likewise, love those who are not the objects of fear, and in whom they can confide. For no one loves him of whom he is afraid. But the species of friendship are fellowship, familiarity, alliance, and things of the like kind. Beneficence also exerted towards another person is productive of friendship, as also are acting beneficently when it is not required, and not divulging favours when they are bestowed. For thus beneficence will appear to have been exerted for the sake of the friend, and not on any other account. CHAPTER 5. With respect to enmity, however, and hatred, it is evident that they must necessarily be surveyed from contraries. But the things which produce enmity are anger, injury either in word or deed, and calumny. Anger, therefore, arises from what pertains to ourselves. But enmity may exist independent of what has reference to ourselves. For if we conceive a man to be a person of a certain description, we hate him. And anger, indeed, is always exerted towards particular persons, as for instance towards Callias or Socrates. But hatred is also exerted towards genera themselves. For every man hates a thief and a sycophant. And anger, indeed, may be cured by time, but hatred is incurable. The former also desires to give pain, but the latter is more desirous to do harm. For he who is angry wishes that he with whom he is angry may be sensible of pain. But with him who hates, this is of no consequence. All painful things, however, are objects of sensation, but those things which are especially evils, viz. Injustice and folly, are in the smallest degree objects of sensation. For the presence of vice is attended with no pain, and anger, indeed, is accompanied with pain, but hatred is not. For he who is angry is pained, but he who hates feels no pain. And the angry man, indeed, pities the subject of his anger, if many evils befall him, but he who hates feels no commiseration for the object of his hatred. For the former wishes that he with whom he is angry may reciprocally suffer what he feels, but the latter wishes that the object of his hatred may no longer exist. From these things, therefore, it is evident that it is possible for an orator to show who those are that are really enemies and friends, and to make those to be such who are not so. He may also dissolve the arguments by which his opponents endeavour to show that some persons are mutually friends or enemies, and that when it is dubious whether a thing was done from anger or from enmity, he may persuade the adoption of that part which some one may have deliberately chosen. CHAPTER 6. What kind of things are the objects of fear, and how those that are terrified are affected, will be evident from what follows. Let fear, therefore, be a certain pain or perturbation arising from the imagination of some future evil, which is either of a destructive nature, or attended with molestation. For not all evils are the objects of fear. Such for instance as injustice or slowness, but such as are capable of producing great molestation or destruction, and these when they are not remote, but seem to be near, so as to be imminent. For things which are very remote are not the objects of fear, since all men know that they shall die, yet because death is not near, they pay no attention to it. If, however, fear is this, it is necessary that such things should be terrible as appear to possess a great power of destroying, or are productive of such harm as is attended with great molestation. Hence, also, the indications of things of this kind are terrible, for the object of fear seems to be near. For danger is this, viz. The approximation of that which is terrible. Things of this kind, however, are the enmity and anger of those who are able to effect something, for it is evident that they are both willing and able, so that they are near to acting what their enmity and anger may suggest. Injustice also, when it possesses power, is the object of fear. For the unjust man is unjust from deliberate choice. Virtue likewise, when insulted, and possessing power, is to be feared. For it is evident that vengeance, when it is insulted, is always the object of its deliberate choice. But now it possesses power. The fear also of those who are able to effect something is the object of terror. For such a one must necessarily be in preparation for that which he dreads. Since, however, the multitude are depraved, are vanquished by gain, and are timid in dangers, to be in the power of another person is a thing for the most part to be feared. Hence, those who have been eye witnesses of any dreadful deed that has been perpetrated, are to be feared, lest they should divulge it, or desert him by whom it was committed. Those likewise who are able to do an injury, are always to be feared by those who are capable of being injured. For men for the most part act unjustly when they are able. Those also are to be feared who either have suffered an injury, or think that they have, for they always watch for an opportunity of retaliating. Those too are to be dreaded who would do an injury if they had the power, for they are afraid of retaliation, and it was supposed that a thing of this kind is the object of dread. Those likewise are to be feared who are competitors for the same things, and which both cannot at one and the same time possess. For between men of this description there is always hostility. Those also who are objects of dread to more powerful men are to be feared by us, for they are more able to injure us than they are to injure the more powerful. For the same reason, those persons are to be feared who are dreaded by men more powerful than themselves, and also those who have destroyed men superior to themselves in power, and those who have attacked men inferior to themselves. For either they are now to be dreaded, or when their power is increased. Among those that have been injured likewise, and among enemies and opponents, such as are to be dreaded are not those that are hasty and choleric, and who speak their mind freely, but those that are mild, who dissemble, and are crafty. For what they are machinating is obscure, or nearly so, and hence their designs are never manifest, because they are remote from observation. With respect, however, to every thing that is dreadful, such things are more to be feared, the errors pertaining to which cannot be corrected, but it is either wholly impossible to correct them, or they cannot be corrected by those that have committed them, but by their adversaries. Those things also are to be feared for which there is no help, or in which assistance cannot easily be obtained. And in short, those things are to be feared, which when they do or shall happen to others, are lamentable in their consequences. With respect to things which are to be feared, and which are dreaded by men, these, as I may say, are nearly the greatest. Let us now show the manner in which men are affected when they are afraid. If, therefore, fear is attended with the expectation of suffering some destructive evil, it is evident that no one is afraid who thinks that he shall not suffer any evil, and that no one dreads those things which he does not think he shall suffer, or those persons through whom he does not imagine he shall suffer. Nor then, when he does not suspect any evil to be imminent. Hence, it is necessary that those persons should be afraid who imagine they shall suffer some evil, and from such persons, and in such things, and at such a time. Neither, however, those who are in very prosperous circumstances, and appear to be so to themselves, imagine they shall suffer any evil, (on which account such men are insolent, neglectful, and audacious, and riches, strength, a multitude of friends, and power produce such men), nor those who think that they have now suffered dreadfully, and whose hopes with respect to futurity are extinct, as is the case with those who are led to capital punishment. But it is necessary, where there is fear, that there should be some hope of safety, and of escaping the evils which occasion their anxiety. Of which this is an indication that fear makes men disposed to receive counsel, though no one consults about things that are hopeless. Hence, when it is necessary that the orator should excite fear in his auditors, he must show them that they are such persons as may suffer many evils, because others greater than them have suffered them. He must also show that men similar to themselves suffer or have suffered many evils, from those through whom they did not expect to suffer, and that they have suffered these evils, and then when they did not imagine they should. CHAPTER 7. Since, however, with respect to fear, it is evident what it is, and it is also evident what the objects of terror are, and how men are affected when they are afraid, it is likewise manifest from these things what confidence is, what the kind of things are in which men confide, and how confident men are disposed. For confidence is contrary to fear, and that which is the object of confidence to that which is the object of dread. Hence, confidence is a hope attended with imagination, that those things which may be salutary to us are near at hand, but that those things which are the objects of our dread, either do not exist, or are remote. But the things which are effective of confidence are, events of a dreadful nature, if they are remote, and such as may be confided in if they are near. Evils also which are imminent, if they may be corrected, produce confidence. And this is likewise the case when many or great auxiliaries, or both these, against evils are present. Confidence also is produced when there are neither any persons who have been injured by us, nor who have injured us, and when either, in short, we have no antagonists, or they have no power, or if they have power, they are our friends, or have received benefits from, or have conferred benefits on us. Confidence likewise is produced when those to whom the same things are advantageous as are beneficial to us are many, or superior to us, or both these. Those, however, that are confident in dangers are such as think they can accomplish with rectitude many things, without suffering any evil, or who, if they frequently fall into great dangers, escape from them. For men become void of perturbation in dangers in a twofold respect, either because they have not experienced them before, or because they have auxiliaries through which they may escape from them. For thus in dangers at sea, those who are unexperienced in its storms are confident they shall escape them, and also those who have assistance in themselves from their experience. Confidence likewise is produced when there is nothing to be feared from either our equals or inferiors, and those to whom we imagine ourselves to be superior. But we imagine ourselves to be superior to those whom we have either themselves vanquished, or those that are superior to or resemble them. Men also are confident, if they think those things are present with them in a greater number, and in a greater degree, for which those who excel others are the objects of dread. And these are an abundance of riches, strength of body, of friends, of country, of warlike apparatus, and either of all, or of the greatest of these. They are likewise confident if they have injured either no one, or not many, or not such as are the objects of fear. And in short, if they are well disposed with reference to what pertains to the gods, both as to other things, and to what is indicated by signs and oracles. For anger is attended with confidence, and not to injure, but to be injured is effective of anger. But divinity is conceived to give assistance to those that are injured. Men also are confident, when either having first attacked others, they neither do nor are likely to suffer any evil, or think that in so doing they have acted rightly. And thus much concerning things which are the objects of fear and confidence. CHAPTER 8. What kinds of things, however, those are which are the objects of shame, and also those for which men are not ashamed, and towards what persons they are ashamed, and how they are disposed when under the influence of this passion, will be evident from what follows. But let shame be a certain pain and perturbation with respect to evils either present, or past, or future, which apparently lead to infamy. And let want of shame or impudence be a certain contempt and impassivity with respect to these very same things. If, therefore, shame is that which we have defined it to be, a man must necessarily be ashamed of evils of such a kind as appear to him to be base, or to those whom he regards. But things of this kind are such deeds as proceed from vice. Such for instance as for a soldier to throw away his shield in battle, or fly. For this proceeds from timidity. It is likewise base to deny a deposit, for this is the effect of injustice, and also to lie with women with whom it is not lawful to lie, or where it is not proper, or when it is not proper, for this proceeds from intemperance. It is likewise base to seek after gain from minute, or disgraceful, or impossible things, as from the poor or the dead. Whence also the proverb, to take away from the dead. For this proceeds from a desire of base gain, and from illiberality. It is also base for a man not to assist others with money when he is able, or to assist in a less degree than he is able. Likewise for a man to receive pecuniary assistance from one less rich than himself, is base. And for him to take up money at interest, and yet seem to beg and yet seem to demand and yet seem to beg, to praise a thing, so as that he may appear to beg it, and though repulsed, to persist no less in begging it. for all these are indications of illiberality. It is likewise base to praise a man to his face, for this is a sign of flattery. Also to praise above measure what is good, but extenuate what is evil. To condole immoderately with one who is afflicted, and every thing else of a similar kind. For these are indications of flattery. It is also base not to endure labours which more elderly or delicate men, or those that have greater authority, or in short, those that are more imbecile endure, for all these are indications of effeminacy. To be benefited likewise by another, and that frequently is base, and also to reprobate the benefits conferred on another. For all these are indications of pusillanimity and an abject mind. It is also base for a man to speak of himself, and to promise great things of himself, and likewise to attribute to himself the deeds of others, for this is a sign of arrogance. In a similar manner, in each of the other ethical vices, works, and indications, the like may be found, for they are base and shameful. In addition to these things also, it is shameful not to participate of those beautiful things of which all men, or all those that resemble each other, or most men participate. But by men that resemble each other I mean those of the same nation, city, and age, and who are allied to each other, and in short, those that are of an equal condition, for it is now base not to partake of these things, as for instance, of such a portion of erudition, and of other things in a similar manner. But all these are more shameful when they are seen to happen to any one from himself. For thus they proceed in a greater degree from vice, when a man is the cause to himself of past, present, or future evils. Men likewise are ashamed of such things as lead to infamy and disgrace, if they suffer, or have suffered, or are to suffer them. And these are such things as pertain to the ministrant services, either of the body, or of base works, among the numbers of which is having the body abused. Things also are shameful which pertain to intemperance, whether voluntary or involuntary. But things which pertain to violence are involuntary. For the endurance of such things unattended with revenge proceeds from sloth and timidity. These therefore, and the like, are the things of which men are ashamed. Since, however, shame is an imagination with respect to ignominy and shame, on account of ignominy itself, and not on account of the evils which attend it, but no one pays any attention to opinion, except on account of those who form the opinion, men must necessarily feel shame in the presence of those whom they regard when they have acted wrong. But they regard those who admire them, and those whom they admire, those by whom they wish to be admired, and with whom they contend for honours, and whose opinion they do not despise. They wish therefore to be admired by, and they admire those who are in possession of some good which is honourable, or from whom they very much wish to obtain something which it is in their power to give them, as for instance is the case with lovers. Men however contend for honours with those that resemble themselves, but they pay attention to prudent men, as to persons of veracity, and men of this kind are such as are more elderly, and the erudite. Men also are ashamed of what is before their eyes, and is done openly, whence the proverb, that shame is in the eyes. On this account they are more ashamed before those that are always present with them, and who pay attention to them, because both these are before their eyes. They are likewise ashamed before those who are not obnoxious to the same crimes as themselves. For it is evident that the opinion of the latter are contrary to those of the former. Before those also they are ashamed, who are not disposed to pardon such as appear to act wrong. For that which a man does himself, he is said not to be indignant with in his neighbours, so that it is evident he will be indignant with crimes which he does not commit himself. They are likewise ashamed before those who divulge to many persons any thing they have done amiss. For there is no difference between the not appearing to have done wrong, and the not divulging it. But those divulge the faults of others who have been injured by them, because they observe their conduct, and also those who are given to defamation. (For if they defame those who have not acted wrong, much more will they defame those that have.) Those also divulge what they see or hear who are attentive to the faults of others, such as those that deride, and comic poets ; for in a certain respect they are given to defamation, and are babblers. Men likewise are ashamed before those by whom they have never been repulsed, but have obtained what they wished ; for they are disposed towards them, as towards persons whom they admire. Hence, also, they feel shame before those who have for the first time asked any thing of them, as not having yet done any thing by which they might lose their good opinion. Of this kind likewise are such as recently wish to be friends, for they have perceived qualities of the most excellent nature in us. Hence the answer of Euripides to the Syracusans was well, when they desired his friendship. Among those likewise who were formerly known to us we feel shame before such of them as are not conscious of any crime we may have committed. Men also are not only ashamed of disgraceful things, but of the indications of such things. Thus for instance, they are not only ashamed of the act of venery, but likewise of the indications of it. And not only when they do base things, but when they speak of them. In a similar manner, also, they are not only ashamed before the above mentioned persons, but before those who may divulge their actions to them, such as the servants and friends of these. In short, men are not ashamed before those whose opinion with respect to veracity is despised by many persons, for no one is ashamed before children and brutes. Nor are men ashamed of the same things before persons that they know, and those who are unknown to them. But before those whom they know they are ashamed of such things as are base in reality, and before those that are unknown, of such things as are legally base. Men, likewise, when they are ashamed, are affected in the following manner. In the first place, when they are present with persons of such a description as we have shown those to be before whom they are ashamed. But these were such as are either admired by them, or who admire them, or by whom they wish to be admired, or from whom they are in want of something advantageous, which they will not obtain if they are without renown. Men also are ashamed when they are seen by such persons as these. As Cydias the orator said respecting the division of the lands in Samos. For he desired the Athenians to suppose that they were surrounded by the Greeks in a circle, not only as hearers, but as spectators of their decrees. And they are likewise ashamed if such persons are near them, or are likely to be spectators of their actions. Hence, those that are unfortunate are unwilling to be seen by those that emulate them, for emulators are admirers. Men also are ashamed when they have any thing which disgraces the actions and affairs either of themselves, or their ancestors, or of certain other persons, with whom they have any alliance. And in short, they are ashamed before those of whom they are themselves ashamed. But these are such persons as the above mentioned, and those who are referred to them, of whom they have been the preceptors or counsellors. They are likewise ashamed if there are other persons resembling themselves, with whom they contend for honorary distinctions. For from shame they both do and omit to do things on account of men of this description. Men also feel more ashamed when they are about to be seen, and converse openly with those who are conscious of their actions. Hence Antipho the poet, when he was led to punishment by the command of Dionysius, on seeing those who were to be executed with him, having their faces covered as they passed through the gates of the prison, said, why do you cover your faces? Will any one of these see you tomorrow? And thus much concerning shame. But with respect to imprudence, it is evident that we shall abound with what is to be said about it from contraries. CHAPTER 9. Those, however, to whom men are grateful, and in what they are grateful, or how they are affected when they are so, will be evident, when we have defined what a favour or kindness is. Let a favour, therefore, be that according to which he who possesses a thing is said to confer a favour on him who is in want of it, not that he may receive any thing from him, nor that any advantage may accrue to the giver, but that he who is in want may be benefited. But a favour is great when it is conferred, either on one who is very much in want of it, or the favour itself consists of things which are great and difficult to obtain, or is bestowed opportunely, or when he who bestows it is the only one, or the first that bestows it, or who especially bestows it. Wants, however, are appetites or desires, and of these particularly such as are accompanied with pain when the desired object is not obtained. But of this kind are such desires as love, and also those which take place in the maladies of the body, and in dangers. For he who is in danger desires, and likewise he who is in pain. Hence, those who relieve men that are in poverty or in exile, though the relief be but small, yet on account of the magnitude of the want, and the seasonableness of the relief, they confer a favour, as was the case with him who gave a mat to a poor exile in the Lyceum. It is necessary, therefore, that he who confers a favour must especially confer it in the above mentioned circumstances, but if not in these, in such as are equal or greater. Hence, since it is evident when and in what things a favour is to be conferred, and how those are affected that bestow a favour, it is likewise manifest that from hence arguments must be derived for the purpose of showing that others are or have been in such like pain and want, and that those who relieved them in such want relieved them by supplying what was mentioned. It is likewise manifest whence it may be shown that a favour has not been conferred, and that no gratitude is due, either by evincing that it is or has been conferred for the sake of those that bestowed it, and that is not a favour, or it may be shown that it was conferred casually, or by compulsion, or that a kindness was returned, but not conferred, whether knowingly or not. For in both ways one thing is given for another, so that neither in this way will it be a favour. What we have said likewise must be considered in all the categories, for it is a favour, either because this particular thing is given, or so much, or a thing of such a quality, or at such a time, or in such a place. But the signs that a favour has not been conferred are if less has been done than at another time, and if the same, or equal, or greater things have been conferred on enemies. For it is evident in this case that these things have not been bestowed for our sakes, or if things of a vile nature have been bestowed knowingly, for no one will acknowledge that he is in want of vile things. And thus much concerning conferring and not conferring a favour. End of chapter 9 of book 1. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards. Chapter 10 of book 2 of Rhetoric. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Geoffrey Edwards. Rhetoric by Aristotle, translated by Thomas Taylor. Chapter 10 of Book 2. Let us now show what pity is, how men that commiserate others are affected, and what things and persons are the objects of pity. But let pity be a certain pain arising from an apparent destructive and dolorific evil which befalls some one undeservedly, and which he who feels this pain, or some one belonging to him, may expect to suffer, and this when the evil is seen to be near. For it is evident that he who will commiserate another person must necessarily be one who will think that either himself, or some one belonging to him, may suffer a certain evil, and such an evil as we have mentioned in the definition of pity, or an evil similar or allied to it. Hence, neither do those who consider themselves as utterly lost feel pity, (for they do not think they shall suffer any thing further than what they have suffered), nor those who fancy themselves exceedingly happy, for they insult those that are in calamity. For if they fancy that every kind of good is present with them, it is evident that they must also fancy they cannot suffer any evil, since a security from evil is among the number of goods. Those, however, who are compassionate are such as think they may suffer, and such as have suffered evils, and have escaped them. Likewise elderly men, on account of their prudence and experience, those that are feeble, and those that are more timid. Also those that are erudite, for they accurately consider the mutability of human affairs. And those that have parents, or children, or wives, for they consider their evils to be their own. Those likewise are compassionate who are not overpowered with anger or confidence. For those that are pay no attention to futurity, and also those who are not insolently disposed. For those that are do not think they shall suffer any evil, but those are compassionate who exist between these. Nor again are those compassionate who are very timid, for those who are terrified feel no pity, because they are occupied with their own passion. Those likewise are compassionate who think that there are some worthy persons. For he who thinks that no one is worthy, will fancy that all men deserve to suffer evil. And in short, a man is compassionate when he is so disposed as to remember that such like evils have happened either to him, or to those belonging to him. And thus we have shown how those who compassionate others are affected. What the things are, however, which they compassionate is evident from the definition. For all such painful and lamentable circumstances as are of a destructive nature are subjects of commiseration. And likewise such evils as fortune is the cause of, if they are great. But evils which are lamentable and destructive are death, stripes, and maladies of the body, old age, disease, and the want of nutriment. And the evils of which fortune is the cause are the privation of friends, a paucity of friends, on which account also it is lamentable to be torn from friends and familiars, deformity of body, imbecility, and mutilation. It is also a subject of commiseration for some evil to happen there, where it was fit some good should have been done, and for a thing of this kind to happen frequently. Likewise for some good to be present, when no advantage can be derived from it, as was the case with the gifts which were sent to Diopithus from the king of Persia, for they were sent to him when he was dead. It is also a subject of commiseration when no good happens to any one, or if it does happen, it cannot be enjoyed. These, therefore, and things of this kind are subjects of commiseration. But men compassionate those they are well acquainted with, unless they are very much allied to them. For towards these, when they are about to suffer any evil, they are affected in the same manner as towards themselves. Hence Amasis, when his son was led to death, did not, as they say, weep, but he wept when he saw his friend beg. For this, indeed, was an object of commiseration, but the former was a dreadful circumstance. For that which is dreadful is different from that which is commiserable, and has the power of expelling pity. It is also frequently useful to the contrary indignation. Men, likewise, feel compassion for their familiars when some evil is near them. They also commiserate those who are similar to themselves in age, in manners, in habits, in dignities, and in birth. For in all these it is more apparent that they may suffer the like evils. For in short, it is here also necessary to assume that men feel pity for the evils of others, if they are such as they are fearful may befall themselves. Since, however, calamities which appear to be near are the subjects of compassion, but such as happened 10,000 years ago, or which will happen 10,000 years hence, as they are neither the objects of expectation nor remembrance, are either not at all the subjects of compassion, or not in a similar degree. Hence, those things which are represented by the same gestures, voices, and apparel, and in short by the same action, as those who were in some calamity adopted, are necessarily more pitiable. For they cause the evil which we commiserate to appear nearer, placing it before our eyes, either as that which will be, or which has been. Calamities likewise, which have recently happened, or which will shortly happen, are for the same reason more pitiable. Signs also, and the actions which have been employed by miserable men are pitiable, such as the garments which they have worn, and other things of the like kind. The species likewise, and whatever else is of a similar nature, of those in calamity, as for instance, of those who are dying, are subjects of commiseration, and especially of those who in such circumstances are worthy men. For all these things, because they seem near, produce greater commiseration, because he who suffers appears not to deserve these evils, and because the calamity is before our eyes. CHAPTER 11. To pity, however, that passion is especially opposed, which they call indignation. For to the pain arising from adverse circumstances, in which some one is undeservedly involved, the pain is after a certain manner opposed, which arises from the same manners, on account of the prosperity which some one unworthily obtains. And both these passions are the offspring of worthy manners. For it is necessary to condole and compassionate those who are undeservedly unfortunate in their affairs, and to be indignant with those who are undeservedly prosperous. For that which happens to any one contrary to his desert is unjust. Hence also we attribute indignation to the gods. Envy likewise may appear to be after the same manner opposed to pity, as being proximate to, and the same with indignation. It is however different from it. For envy also is a turbulent pain arising from the prosperity of another person, but is not a pain arising from undeserved prosperity, but from the prosperity of one who is equal and similar to him who is envious. Both these passions, however, agree in this, that each is pained for the prosperity of another, because he is prosperous, and not because any evil arises from thence to the subject of these passions. For if this were not the case, one of these passions would no longer be envy, and the other indignation, but each would be fear, if pain and perturbation were produced, because some evil would befall the subject of these passions from the prosperity of another. It is, however, evident that contrary passions are consequent to these perturbations. For he who is pained on account of the unmerited prosperity of others will rejoice, or at least will be without pain, on account of the contraries to these, viz. Those who are deservedly unfortunate. Thus, for instance, no worthy person will be pained when parricides and murderers are punished ; for it is necessary to rejoice in the misfortunes of such persons. After the same manner also it is proper to rejoice in the prosperity of those who are deservedly fortunate. For both these are just, and cause a worthy man to rejoice, since it is necessary he should hope the same prosperity will also befall him which befell one who resembles him. And all these passions belong to the same manners. But the contraries to these belong to contrary manners. For it is the same person who rejoices in the evils of another, and who is envious, since he who is pained at that which befalls, and is present with some one, must necessarily rejoice at the privation and destruction of that thing. Hence, all these passions are impediments to pity, but they differ from the above mentioned causes, so that all of them are similarly useful for the prevention of pity. In the first place, therefore, let us speak concerning indignation, and show with what persons, and on account of what circumstances we are indignant, and how those who are indignant are affected. And afterwards, let us speak concerning the other passions. But from what has been said, it is evident with what persons men are indignant. For if to be indignant is to be pained on account of some one who appears to be undeservedly prosperous, in the first place it is evident that we cannot be indignant on account of every good. For if a man is just, or brave, or has any virtue, no one can be indignant with him, nor are those the objects of pity who are contrary to these. But men are indignant at riches and power and things of this kind, of which, in short, good men are worthy. Nor are men indignant with those who possess any thing which is naturally good, such as nobility, beauty, and the like. Since, however, that which is ancient appears to be something proximate to what is naturally possessed, it necessarily follows that men are more indignant with those who possess the same good, if they have recently possessed it, and on account of this are in prosperous circumstances. For those who have recently become rich are the cause of greater molestation to others than those whose wealth is ancient, and by descent. In a similar manner, also, rulers, powerful men, those who have numerous friends, and an excellent progeny, and whatever else is of the like kind, occasion greater molestation to others. And this is also the case if any other good befalls them on account of these things. For we are more indignant with those who are recently rich when they become rulers through their riches, than with those who have been for a long time in possession of wealth, and in a similar manner in other things. The cause, however, of this is, that those who have for a long time possessed wealth appear to possess what is their own, and this is not the case with those who have recently become rich. For that which appears to have always been possessed appears to be truly possessed, so that persons of the latter description do not seem to possess what is their own, because, likewise, any casual person is not worthy of every good, but there is a certain analogy and fitness (since, for instance, the beauty of arms is not adapted to a just, but to a brave man, and illustrious marriages are not adapted to those who have recently become rich, but to those of noble birth). Hence, if a man is a worthy character, and does not obtain that which is adapted to him, so far as he is worthy, we are indignant. We are likewise indignant when an inferior contends with his superior, and especially when he contends with him in that in which he is inferior. On this account it is said by Homer, Hence did Cebriones in combat shun To engage the valiant son of Telamon. For his presuming pride offended Jove, That with a better man he durst his courage prove. And we are also indignant if he contends with him in any thing else, and not only in that in which he is inferior ; as if, for instance, a musician should contend with a just man ; for justice is a thing more excellent than music. From these things, therefore, it is evident what are the objects of indignation, and why they are so ; for they are these, and things of a like nature. But men are disposed to be indignant, if being worthy to obtain the greatest goods, they do not obtain them. For it is not just to think those persons worthy to obtain a similar good, who are not similarly worthy. And when men of this description become the possessors of similar good, worthy men are indignant. In the second place, good and worthy men are prone to be indignant, for they judge well, and hate what is unjust. Those likewise are indignant who are ambitious, and who aspire after certain actions, and especially when they are ambitious about those things which others obtain that are unworthy to obtain them. And in short, those who think themselves deserving of that good, which other persons think them not to deserve, are indignant with such persons, and especially when they obtain this good. Hence men of a servile disposition, bad men, and those who are not ambitious, are not prone to indignation. for there is nothing of this kind of which they think themselves worthy. From these things, however, it is manifest what kind of persons those are for whose misfortunes and evils, or the frustration of their wishes, we ought to rejoice, or feel no pain. For from what has been said, the opposites are apparent. Hence, unless the oration so prepares the judges when their compassion is solicited as to convince them that those who implore their pity are unworthy to receive it, and that those who do not implore it are worthy to receive it, it is impossible to excite pity in the judges. CHAPTER 12. It is likewise evident what the things and persons are which occasion envy, and how those are affected that are envious, if envy is a certain pain arising from apparent prosperity in the above mentioned goods, when it happens to persons of a similar condition, not because this prosperity does not befall him who is envious, but because it falls to the lot of those who are the objects of envy. For those that envy are such as to whom certain persons are similar, or appear to be so ; I mean who are similar in birth, in alliance, in habit, in reputation, and external abundance. Men likewise envy who want but little of possessing every good. Hence, those who perform great actions and are prosperous are envious, for they fancy that whatever accedes to others is taken from themselves. Those also are envious that are remarkably honoured for a certain thing, and especially when they are honoured for wisdom, or felicity. Likewise, those who are ambitious are more envious than those who are unambitious. Those also are envious who wish to seem to be wise, but are not so in reality, for they are ambitious of the honour which is attendant on wisdom. And in short, those are envious who are lovers of renown in any pursuit, for in this pursuit they are envious. The pusillanimous also are envious, for all things appear to them to be great. Hence, therefore, it is evident what the goods are which are the objects of envy. For envy is excited by those actions through which men pursue glory, contend for honour, and aspire after the good opinion of others. And nearly in all such things as are the effects of good fortune there is envy. But this is especially the case in those things which men either desire themselves, or fancy they ought to possess, or in those things in the possession of which they are a little superior, or a little inferior to others. It is likewise evident who the persons are that are the objects of envy. For this was at the same time shown from what has been said about those who are envious. For men envy those who are near to them in time, in place, in age, and in renown. Whence it is said, That which is kindred knows how to envy. Men also envy those with whom they contend for honour. For they contend for honour with the persons above mentioned. But no one contends with those who lived 10,000 years ago, or with those who will exist 10,000 years hence, or with those who are dead, nor yet with those who dwell at the pillars of Hercules, nor with those to whom in their own opinion, or in the opinion of others, they are far inferior. Nor in like manner do they contend with those to whom they are much superior. Since, however, men contend for honour with their antagonists and rivals, and in short, with those who aspire after the same things, it is necessary that they should especially envy those persons. Hence it is said by Hesiod, the potter envies the potter. Those also who have scarcely obtained, or who have not at all obtained a thing, envy those who have rapidly obtained it. Men likewise envy those who, by obtaining or acting rightly in any thing, are a disgrace to them. But these are near and similar. For it is evident in this case that those who envy did not obtain the good which those whom they envy obtained, through their own fault. So that this being painful produces envy. They also envy those who either have possessed these things, or who have obtained what it is fit for them to possess, or which they once possessed, and on this account the more elderly envy the younger. Those likewise who have spent much on the same thing, envy those who have spent little on it. It is also evident what the things and persons are in which men of this description rejoice, and in what manner they are affected. For as those who are not thus affected are pained, so those who are so affected are delighted with contrary circumstances, [i. e. they rejoice when they possess the good which those are deprived of who resemble themselves. Hence, if the orator disposes the judges to be affected in the same manner as those who are envious, and if he shows that those who implore pity, or desire to obtain a certain good, are such as we have said those are who are envied, it is evident that they will not obtain pity from their masters. CHAPTER 13. It is likewise from hence evident how they are affected, who are emulous, and of what kind of things and persons they are emulous. For emulation is a certain pain arising from the apparent presence of honourable goods, and which he who emulates may possess, as falling to the lot of those who naturally resemble him ; so that he who is emulous is not pained that these goods are possessed by another, but that they are not possessed by himself. Hence emulation is equitable, and is possessed by equitable men. But envy is a depraved thing, and is possessed by depraved men. For he who emulates prepares himself through emulation for the attainment of good ; but he who envies endeavours through envy that his neighbour may not obtain some good. It is necessary, therefore, that those should be emulous who think themselves deserving of the good which they do not possess ; for no one thinks himself deserving of things which appear impossible to be obtained. Hence, young men, and those who are magnanimous, are emulous. Those likewise are emulous who possess such goods as deserve to be possessed by illustrious men ; for these are riches, numerous friends, dominion, and the like. For as they think it fit that they should be worthy men, they emulate the worthy who possess similar goods. Men also emulate those whom others think deserving of good, and likewise those whose ancestors, or kindred, or domestics, or nation, or city are famous, are in these things emulous. For they think them to be appropriate to themselves, and that they are worthy of these. If, however, honourable goods are the subjects of emulation, it is necessary that the virtues should be things of this kind, and likewise such things as are useful and beneficial to others. For benefactors and good men are honoured. Those goods also, which are enjoyed by those who are proximate to us, are the subjects of emulation, such as riches and beauty, which are enjoyed more than health. It is evident, therefore, who those persons are that are the subjects of emulation. For those who possess these and such like things are emulated. But these are the above mentioned particulars, such as fortitude, wisdom, and dominion. For rulers have the power of benefiting many. Generals likewise, rhetoricians, and all who are able to effect things of this kind are objects of emulation. This also is the case with those whom many wish to resemble, or of whom many wish to be the familiars or friends, or whom many admire, or whom they themselves admire. And likewise with those whose praises and encomiums are celebrated by poets, or the writers of orations. Men, however, despise those who are deprived of these goods, and who are defiled with the contrary vices. For contempt is contrary to emulation, and emulating to despising. But it is necessary that those who are so affected as to emulate certain persons, or be emulated, should despise those who have the evils opposite to the goods which produce emulation. Hence, they frequently despise such as are fortunate when fortune is present with them without honourable goods. And thus we have shown through what particulars the passions are ingenerated and dissolved, from which credibility is derived. CHAPTER 14. In the next place, let us show what the manners of men are according to their passions, habits, ages, and fortunes. And the passions indeed, I denominate anger, desire, and the like, concerning which we have spoken before. But habits are the virtues and vices, and of these also we have spoken before, and have also shown what the objects are which every one deliberately chooses, and what the actions which he performs. The ages are youth, the acme of life, and old age. but I call fortune, nobility, wealth, power, and the contraries to these, and in short, prosperous and adverse fortune. Young men therefore are prone to desire, and prepared to accomplish what they desire. Of all the desires pertaining to the body likewise, they are especially addicted to venereal pleasures, and are intemperate in these ; but they are mutable, and rapidly become fastidious in their desires. They also desire vehemently, and quickly cease to desire ; for their wishes are acute, and not great, so that they resemble the hunger and thirst of those that are sick. For they are likewise prone to anger, are precipitately angry, are prepared to follow the impulse of passion, and are vanquished by anger. For in consequence of their ambition they cannot endure to be neglected, but are indignant if they conceive that they are injured. And they are indeed ambitious, but they are more desirous of victory. For youth aspires after transcendency, but victory is a certain transcendency. They are also more desirous of both these, i.e. honour and victory, than of riches. But they are in the smallest degree anxious about wealth, because they have not yet experienced the want of it. As it is said in an apothegm of Pittacus on Amphiaraus. Young men likewise are not malevolent, but ingenuous, because they have not yet beheld much depravity. They are also credulous, because they have not yet been deceived in many things. And they are full of good hope. For in the same manner as men are heated who are intoxicated with wine, so young men are naturally hot, and at the same time they are full of good hope, because they have not yet been frequently frustrated of their wishes. They also live for the most part from hope. For hope indeed is of the future, but memory of the past. But with young men the future is long, and the past short. For in the morning of life they do not think that they should remember any thing, but hope all things. They are likewise easily deceived, for the cause already assigned, for they easily hope. They are also more brave, for they are irascible, and full of good hope, of which the former causes them to be fearless, and the latter confident. For no one who is angry is afraid, and to hope for some good produces confidence. They are likewise bashful, for they do not as yet apprehend other things to be beautiful in conduct than those in which they were instructed by law alone. And they are magnanimous, for they are not yet rendered abject by life, but are unexperienced in its necessities. And magnanimity consists in a man believing himself to deserve great things. And this is the province of one who entertains good hope. They likewise prefer beautiful to profitable conduct, for they live more from moral precepts than from reasoning. But reasoning is directed to that which is profitable, and virtue to that which is beautiful. Youth also is a lover of friends and associates more than the other ages, because it rejoices in society, and does not yet judge of any thing by its utility, so that neither does it seek for advantage in friendship. Youth likewise err in every thing in a greater degree and more vehemently, contrary to the precept of Chilo. For they do all things too much, since they love and hate too much, and in a similar manner with respect to every thing else. For they fancy and strenuously contend that they know all things. And this is the reason why they exceed in all their actions. They also injure others from insolence, and not malevolently. And they are compassionate, because they apprehend all men to be worthy and better than they are. For by their own innocence they measure others, so that they are of opinion they suffer undeservedly. They are likewise addicted to laughter, on which account also they are facetious, for facetiousness is learned contumely. Such, therefore, are the manners of youth. CHAPTER 15. Elderly men, however, and those who have lost the vigour of age, are nearly, for the most part, endued with manners contrary to those of youth. For because they have lived many years, have been deceived in many things, and have erred, and because the greater part of human affairs is bad, hence they do not firmly assert any thing, and estimate all things less than is proper. They likewise opine, but know nothing, and being involved in doubt, they always add perhaps, and it may be. And in this manner they speak on every subject, but they assert nothing stably. They are also ill-natured, for ill nature consists in putting the worst construction on every thing. Farther still, they are suspicious from their incredulity, but they are incredulous from their experience. On this account, likewise, they neither love nor hate vehemently, but according to the precept of bias, they love as if they should some time or other hate, and they hate as if they should some time or other love. They are also pusillanimous, because they have become abject through length of years, for they desire nothing great or illustrious, but those things only which are necessary to the support of life. They are likewise illiberal, for one of the necessaries of life is property. But at the same time, from experience, they know how difficult the acquisition of wealth is, and how easily it is lost. They are also timid, and are afraid of every thing beforehand. For they are affected in a manner contrary to youth, since they are frigid, but youth is hot, so that old age prepares the way for timidity, for fear is a certain refrigeration. They are likewise lovers of life, and especially at the close of life, because desire is directed to that which is absent, and that which is wanted is especially the object of desire. They are also lovers of themselves more than is proper, for this also is a certain pusillanimity, and they live with a view to what is advantageous, and not with a view to what is beautiful in conduct, more than is proper, because they are lovers of themselves. For what is advantageous is good to an individual, but that which is beautiful in conduct is simply good. They are likewise more impudent than modest. For because they do not similarly pay attention to the beautiful in conduct and the advantageous, they neglect the opinion of others, as to their own actions. They are also despondent on account of their experience of human affairs, for the greater part of human concerns are bad, and therefore most of them tend to a worse condition, and also on account of their timidity. And they live more from memory than from hope. For the remainder of their life is but little, but that which is past is much. And hope indeed is of the future, but memory is of the past. This likewise is the cause of their garrulity. For they dwell on the narration of past events, because they are delighted with the recollection of them. Their anger also is sharp, but imbecile. And their desires partly fail, and partly are weak, so that they are neither prone to desire, nor disposed to act according to its impulse, but they act with a view to gain. Hence those who are so far advanced in age appear to be temperate, for their desires become remiss, and they are subservient to gain. They likewise live more from reasoning than from manners, for reasoning is directed to that which is advantageous, but manners are directed to virtue. They injure others also from malevolence, and not from insolence. Old men likewise are compassionate as well as young men, but not from the same cause. For young men are compassionate from philanthropy, but old men from imbecility. For they fancy that all evils are near them, and this was the definition of a compassionate man. Hence also they are querulous, and are neither facetious nor lovers of laughter. For the querulous disposition is contrary to that which is addicted to laughter. Such, therefore, are the manners of young and elderly men. Hence, too, since every one willingly admits orations adapted to his manners, and which exhibit similar manners in the orator, it is not immanifest what the manners are which an orator ought to express in his oration, so that they may be readily heard by the young or the old. CHAPTER XVI. With respect to those, however, who are in the acme of life, it is evident that their manners will be between those of youth and old men, so as to take away the excess of each. And they are neither very confident, for audacity is a thing of such a kind as confidence, nor very timid, but are disposed in a becoming manner with respect to both these. Nor do they confide in all men, nor disbelieve all men, but are more disposed to judge according to truth. And neither do they alone live with a view to what is beautiful in conduct, nor with a view to what is advantageous, but with a view to both. Nor are they inclined to parsimony, nor yet to luxury, but to that mode of life which is appropriate and fit. They are also disposed in a similar manner with respect to anger and desire, and they are temperate in conjunction with fortitude, and brave in conjunction with temperance. For these virtues are distributed in the young and the old, since young men indeed are brave and intemperate, but elderly men temperate and timid. In short, the advantages which are distributed among the young and the old subsist in conjunction in those who are in the acme of life. But such things as exceed, or are deficient in the young and the old, of these, that which is moderate and fit, is possessed by men in the vigour of their age. But the body indeed is in its acme from 30 to 35 years of age, but the soul about the 49th year. And thus much concerning the manners of youth, and old age, and those who are in the acme of life. CHAPTER XVII. Let us in the next place speak concerning the goods derived from fortune, through which it happens that the manners of men become such as they are. The manners, therefore, of nobility are indeed such as render him who possesses it more ambitious. For all men, when any good is present with them, are accustomed to accumulate it. But nobility is a certain dignity of ancestors. But it is peculiar to those of noble birth to despise those who resemble their ancestors, i.e. who have recently obtained those goods which their ancestors formerly possessed. Because remote renown is more honourable than that which is recently obtained, and is attended with greater glory. A man, however, is noble from the virtue of lineage, but he is generous through not degenerating from the nature of his ancestors, which for the most part is not the case with men of noble birth, since many of them are abject. For there is a fertility in the progenies of men, in the same manner as in the productions of the earth. And sometimes if the stock is good, illustrious men are for a time produced, but afterwards there is again a remission of fecundity. The progeny also, which possessed an excellent disposition, degenerates into more insane manners, as was the case with the offspring of Alcibiades and the elder Dionysius. But progeny of a stable disposition degenerate into stupidity and sloth, as was the case with the descendants of Cimon, Pericles, and Socrates. CHAPTER XVIII. But the manners which are consequent to wealth may be easily seen by all men. For rich men are insolent and proud, and these manners they derive from the possession of wealth, since they are affected in the same manner as if they possessed every good. For wealth is, as it were, the test by which the worth of other things is estimated, on which account it appears that all things may be purchased by it. Rich men also are luxurious and boastful, luxurious indeed from their delicate mode of living, and the ostentation of their felicity. But they are boastful and of barbarous manners, because all men are accustomed to dwell upon that which is beloved and admired by them, and because they fancy that others are emulous of that which is the object of their emulation. At the same time, however, they are deservedly thus affected ; for many are in want of the riches which they possess. Whence, also, that saying of Simonides respecting wise and rich men, in answer to the wife of King Hiero, who asked him whether it was better to become a rich than a wise man. For he replied, that it was better to be a rich man, because wise men, said he, are seen waiting at the doors of the rich. They are also thus affected because they fancy themselves worthy to govern. For they fancy they possess those things for the sake of which government is thought worthy of being obtained. And in short, the manners of the rich are the manners of one who is stupidly happy. The manners of the wealthy, however, who have recently become rich, differ from the manners of those who have derived their wealth from their ancestors in this, that the former have all vices in a greater degree, and with more depravity. For wealth recently acquired is as it were a certain inerudition of riches. Rich men also injure others, not from malevolence, but partly from insolence, and partly from intemperance, as when from the former they strike others, and from the latter commit adultery. CHAPTER 19. Thus, too, most of the manners pertaining to power are nearly evident. For power has partly the same, and partly better manners than wealth. For men in power are as to their manners more ambitious and more virile than rich men, because they aspire after those employments which they are capable of performing through their power. They are likewise more diligent, as being compelled to direct their attention to things pertaining to power. They are also more venerable than severe, for dignity renders them more conspicuous, on which account they are moderate in their conduct. But venerableness is a mild and decorous gravity. And if they act unjustly, it is not in small affairs, but in things of great consequence. Prosperity, likewise, as to its parts, has the manners of the above mentioned characters, viz. Of the noble, the rich, and the powerful. For those prosperities which appear to be the greatest tend to these. And farther still, prosperity prepares us to abound in a good offspring, and in the goods pertaining to the body. Powerful men, therefore, are more proud and inconsiderate on account of their prosperity. Among the manners, however, which are attendant on good fortune, there is one which is most excellent, and it is this, that the fortunate are lovers of divinity, and are well disposed towards a divine nature. For they believe in it in a becoming manner, in consequence of the goods proceeding from fortune. And thus much concerning the manners of men according to age and fortune. For the manners which are contrary to the before mentioned are evident from contrary fortunes, viz. From the fortunes of the poor, the unfortunate, and the powerless. CHAPTER 20. The use, however, of persuasive orations pertains to judgment. For we no longer require arguments about things which we know, and of which we have formed a judgment. And though it be but one person alone whom the orator endeavours to exhort or dissuade, as is the case with those who admonish or persuade, yet that one person is a judge. For he whom it is necessary to persuade is, in short, a judge. And the like takes place whether the oration is directed against the litigant, or against the hypothesis. For it is necessary that an oration should be employed, and that the contrary arguments should be subverted, against which, as against a litigant, the oration is made. A similar method must also be adopted in demonstrative orations. For in these the speech is directed to the spectators as to judges. In short, he alone is, simply speaking, a judge who, in political contests, judges the subjects of investigation. For in such contests, the manner in which things of a dubious nature subsist, is investigated, and also those which are the subjects of consultation. Concerning the manners of politics, however, we have already spoken in what we have said about deliberative affairs ; so that it is there explained in what manner and through what particulars we may produce ethical orations. But since about every kind of oration there is a certain different end, and about all of them opinions and propositions are assumed, from which those who consult, demonstrate, and dispute, derive credibility, and farther still, since we have also discussed those particulars from which it is possible to compose ethical orations, it remains that we should discuss such things as are common. For it is necessary that all rhetoricians in orations of every kind should employ what pertains to the possible and impossible, and should endeavour to show that some things will be, and that others have been. The consideration likewise of magnitude is common to all orations. For all orations, whether they persuade or dissuade, whether they praise or blame, accuse or defend, employ diminution and amplification. But these things being determined, let us endeavour to discuss in common what pertains to enthymemes and examples, in order that by adding what remains, we may bring to an end what we proposed from the first. Of things however which are common, amplification is most adapted to demonstrative orations, as we have before observed. But that which has been done is more adapted to judicial orations (for judgment is employed about these), and the possible and what will be done are most adapted to deliberative orations. In the first place, therefore, let us speak concerning things possible and impossible. If then it is possible for one contrary to be, or to be effected, it would seem to be possible that the other contrary also may be. Thus for instance, if it is possible that a man may be restored to health, it is also possible that he may be diseased ; for there is the same power of contraries so far as they are contraries. And if one similar is possible, another similar likewise is possible. And if that which is more difficult is possible, that also which is more easy is possible. If, likewise, it is possible for a thing to be rendered good or beautiful, it is possible in short for that thing to be produced. For it is more difficult for a beautiful house, than for a house simply to exist. That also of which the beginning is possible, the end is possible. For nothing is effected, nor begins to be effected, of things which are impossible. Thus for instance, it will never begin to be possible, nor will it ever be possible, that the diagonal of a square should be commensurable with the side of the square. That of which the end, likewise, is possible, the beginning is possible. For all things are produced from the beginning or principle. If that also which is a posterior in essence, or in generation, is possible to be effected, this is likewise the case with that which is prior. As, if it is possible for a man, it is also possible for a child to be generated, for the latter is prior to the former. And if it is possible for a child to be generated, it is likewise possible for a man. For a child is the beginning, but man is the end of this generation. Those things also, of which the love or desire is from nature, are possible. For no one for the most part loves or desires things impossible. And it is possible for those things to be and to be effected of which there are sciences and arts. Those things likewise are possible, the principle of the generation of which is in those things which we can compel, or persuade. And these are things than which we are more powerful, or of which we are the masters or friends. And of those things of which the parts are possible, the whole is possible. And of those things of which the whole, the parts also are, for the most part, possible. For it is possible for the ornaments of the head and a garment to be made. It is also possible for apparel to be made. And if apparel, it is likewise possible for the ornaments of the head, and a garment to be made. If likewise the whole genus is among the number of things possible to be effected, this is also the case with the species. And if with the species, Likewise with the genus. Thus for instance, if it is possible for a ship, it is also possible for a three*banked galley to be constructed. And if a three*banked galley, a ship likewise may be constructed. And if one of those things which are naturally related to each other is possible, the other also is possible, as if the double is possible. This is also the case with the half, and if the half, the double also. If likewise it is possible for any thing to be effected without art or preparation, it is much more possible for it to be effected through art and diligent attention. Whence, also, it is said by Agatho, Some things by fortune may effected be, And some by art we do, and from necessity. And if a thing may be effected by worse, or inferior, or more imprudent persons, it may also be much more effected by persons of a contrary description. As likewise Isocrates said, that it would be a dreadful thing, if Euthyphus should have learnt that, which he himself was unable to discover. But with respect to things impossible, it is evident that they may be obtained from the contraries to the above mentioned particulars. Whether a thing, however, has been done, or has not been done, must be considered from what follows. For in the first place, if that has been done, which is less naturally adapted to have been done, that will have been effected, which is more naturally adapted to have been done. And if that which was wont to be done afterwards has been done, that also has been done, which was usually done before. As if a man has forgotten any thing he has once learnt, that which he has forgotten. And if a man is able and willing to do a thing, he has done it. For all men act when they are willing and able, since there is no impediment to their acting. Farther still, if a man is willing to do a thing, and nothing external impedes him, he does it. And if he is able to effect any thing, and is angry, he effects it. And this is likewise the case if he is able, and is under the influence of desire. For men for the most part do those things which they desire, and are able to effect. Depraved men indeed from intemperance, but worthy men because they desire what is equitable. If also any one intended to do a thing, it is probable that he did it. And if such things are done as are naturally adapted to be done prior to a certain thing, or for the sake of it, that thing has been done. Thus, if it has lightened, it has also thundered. And if any one has endeavoured to do a certain thing, he has also done it. And if such things as are naturally adapted to have been done afterwards, or if that for the sake of which they are done has been effected, that also which is done prior to them, and for the sake of which they are done, has been effected. Thus, if it has thundered, it has lightened. And if a thing has been done, there has likewise been an endeavour to do it. With respect, however, to all these things, some of them are from necessity, but others for the most part subsist after this manner. And as to that which has not been done, it is evident that it may be shown not to have been done from places contrary to the before mentioned. Evidence likewise with respect to what will be done may be derived from the same things. For that which it is in the power and will of any one to do, will be done. This is also the case with things which any one is impelled to do from desire and anger, and reasoning in conjunction with power. Hence, if any one is impelled, or meditates to do a thing, it will be done, since for the most part things which are intended to be done are effected, rather than those which are not. If, also, those things are done which ought to have been done first, that likewise will be done, which ought to have been done afterwards. Thus, because before it rains the clouds ought to be collected, if the clouds are collected, it is probable it will rain. And if a thing has been done, which is for the sake of something else, it is probable that the thing will be done for the sake of which the other was done. As if the foundation is laid, it is probable the house will be built. With respect, however, to the magnitude and parvitude of things, the greater and the less, and in short, things which are great and small, these will be evident to us from what has been said before. For in the discussion of the deliberative genus, we have spoken concerning the magnitude of what is good, and in short concerning the greater and the less. Hence, since in every oration the proposed end is good, as for instance the useful, the beautiful, and the just, it is evident that through these amplifications must be assumed in all orations. But besides these, to investigate any thing concerning magnitude simply and excess is a vain discussion. For particulars are more useful in the composition of orations than universals, and thus much concerning the possible and impossible, and whether a thing has been done, or has not been done, and will be, or will not be. And further still, concerning the greatness and littleness of things. CHAPTER 21. It now remains to speak about the credibility which is common to all orations, since we have already spoken about the credibility which is peculiar. But there are two kinds of the credibility which is common, viz. Example and enthymeme. For a sentence is a part of an enthymeme. In the first place, therefore, let us speak concerning example. For example is similar to induction, but induction is a principle. But of examples there are two species. For one species indeed of example is to speak of things that are past, but the other is, when we ourselves feign something similar for the purpose of showing that which we wish to show. And of this, one species is a parable, but the other fables, like those of Aesop and the Africans. Example, however, is indeed a thing of the following kind, as if some one should say, that it is necessary to make preparations against the Persian king, and not suffer him to subjugate Egypt. For prior to him, Darius could not pass over the Hellespont till he had captured Egypt. But when he had captured it, he passed into Greece. And again, Xerxes did not attack Greece till he had captured Egypt. But when he had captured it, he passed over into Greece. So that this king of Persia also, if he should take Egypt, will pass into Greece. Hence he must not be suffered to do this. But a parable is a Socratic similitude, as if some one should say, that it is not proper magistrates should be chosen by lot. For this is just as if some one should choose athletæ by lot, so as not to select those who are able to contend, but those on whom the lot falls. Or as if some one should choose by lot from a number of sailors him who ought to be the pilot of a ship, as if it were proper that he should be chosen on whom the lot falls, and not he who is skilled in steering a ship. But a fable is such as that of Stesichorus against Phalaris, and of Aesop for a certain demagogue. For when the Himerians had chosen Phalaris for their general with absolute authority, and were about to give him a guard for his body, Stesichorus, after other things which he had said, addressed this fable to them, that a horse once had sole possession of a meadow, but that a stag coming into it, and destroying the pasture, the horse, wishing to be revenged of the stag, asked a man if he should be able in conjunction with him to punish the stag. But the man answered, that he should be able if he would suffer himself to be bridled, and let him get on his back, armed with darts. The horse, therefore, having consented, the man, having got on his back, instead of taking vengeance on the stag, made the horse his slave. In like manner, he said, do you Himerians take care, lest, wishing to be revenged of your enemies, you suffer the same thing as the horse. For now you have received a bridle, in having chosen a general with absolute authority. But if you allow him a guard, and suffer him to get on your backs, you will immediately be enslaved by Phalaris. But Aesop, when pleading in Samos for a demagogue who was in danger of losing his life, said, That a fox in passing over a river fell into a whirlpool, and not being able to get out of it, was for a long time in a miserable condition, and many canine flies adhered to his skin. But a hedgehog wandering along, as soon as he saw him, commiserating his condition, asked him whether he should drive away the canine flies from him. The fox, however, would not give his permission, and being asked by the hedgehog why he would not, replied, Because these indeed are now full of me, and draw but little blood. But if you drive these away, others will come who are hungry, and will drink up the rest of my blood. Thus, O men of Samos, said he, this man will no longer hurt you, for he is rich. But if you put him to death, other persons who are poor will succeed him, and by thieving the public property will consume your wealth. Fables, however, are adapted to popular harangues, and they have this good, that it is difficult to find things which have been similarly transacted, but it is easy to find fables. For it is necessary that he who is able to perceive similitude in things should compose fables in the same manner as parables, which it is easy to do from philosophy. It is easy, therefore, to introduce fables. But examples derived from history are more useful for the purpose of consultation, for future, for the most part, resembles past events. But it is necessary that the orator should use examples as demonstrations when he has not enthymemes, for credibility is obtained through these. And when he has enthymemes, he should use them as testimonies, and should employ examples in the epilogues of the enthymemes. For examples, when they are proposed by themselves, ought to be similar to inductions. But induction is not adapted to rhetorical compositions, except in a few instances. And examples, when adduced in confirmation of conclusions, are equivalent to testimonies. But a witness is everywhere adapted to persuade. Hence he who introduces examples prior to enthymemes must necessarily adduce many examples. But one example is sufficient for the purpose of confirming what has been proved by enthymemes. For a credible witness, though but one, is useful. And thus we have shown how many species there are of examples, and how and when they are to be used. End of chapter 21 of book 2. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards. Chapter 22 of book 2 of Rhetoric. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Geoffrey Edwards. Rhetoric by Aristotle. Translated by Thomas Taylor. Chapter 22 of book 2. With respect to nomology, or the doctrine of a sentence, when we have shown what a sentence is, it will then especially become evident about what kind of things, and when, and to what persons it is fit to employ sentences in orations. But a sentence is an enunciation, yet not about particulars, such as what kind of person Iphicrates was, but about that which is universal. Yet it is not about all universals, such for instance as that a right is contrary to a curved line, but it is about those universals with which actions are conversant, and those things which in acting are eligible or to be avoided. Hence, because enthymemes are nearly syllogisms about things of this kind, if the syllogism is taken away, the conclusions and the principles of the enthymemes are sentences. Thus for instance, what Medea in Euripides says is a sentence, viz. It does not become a man of a sound mind to educate his children so as to render them transcendently wise. This, therefore, is a sentence. But the cause being added, and the why, the whole is an enthymeme ; as for instance, in the words of Medea, For besides the indolence which they thus acquire, they excite the baneful envy of their fellow citizens. And also, There is no man who is in all respects happy. And, There is not any man who is free, is a sentence ; but the following words being added, it becomes an enthymeme, viz. For he is either the slave of wealth, or of fortune. If, therefore, a sentence is what we have said it is, there are necessarily four species of a sentence. For it will either subsist in conjunction with an epilogue, or without an epilogue. Those sentences, therefore, require demonstration which assert any thing paradoxical, or dubious ; but those that assert nothing paradoxical are without an epilogue. But of these, it is necessary that some indeed, in consequence of being previously known, should require no epilogue ; such as for instance, Health, as it appears to us, is the best of things to man ; for thus it appears to the many. But other sentences as soon as they are spoken, become manifest to those that consider them ; such as, There is no lover who does not always love. Of sentences, however, which are with an epilogue, some indeed are the parts of an enthymeme ; as, It does not become a man of a sound mind. But others are enthymematic, yet are not a part of an enthymeme, which also are especially approved. These are sentences in which the cause of what is said is apparent, as in the following, Being a mortal, do not retain an immortal anger. For to say, It is not proper to retain anger always, is a sentence ; but the addition, Being a mortal, asserts the why, or the cause. Similar to this also is the sentence, It is fit that mortals should be wise in mortal, and not in immortal concerns. From what has been said, therefore, it is manifest how many species there are of a sentence, and to what kind of things each is adapted. For in things of a dubious or paradoxical nature, a sentence is not to be used without an epilogue ; but either an epilogue being added, the sentence must be used as a conclusion ; as if any one should say, I indeed, since it is neither proper to be envious, nor to be indolent, assert that erudition is not requisite. Or this being previously said, the former assertions must be subjoined. But in things which are not paradoxical indeed, yet are immanifest, the why or cause must be more concisely added. And to things of this kind, laconic apothegms and enigmas are adapted ; as if some one should say what Stesichorus said among the Locrians, That it is not proper to behave insolently, lest the grasshoppers should sing on the ground. A sententious mode of speaking, however, is adapted to him who is more advanced in age. But what he sententiously says, must be about things in which he is skilled. Hence, it is unbecoming for one who is not so advanced in age to speak sententiously, in the same manner as it is for him to mythologize. But for a man to speak sententiously about things in which he is unskilled is foolish and inerudite. Of which this is a sufficient indication, that rustics are especially sententious, and easily show that they are so. To assert, however, universally that which is not universally true, is especially adapted to lamentation and amplification. And in this case, such sentences must be adduced either at the beginning, or when you demonstrate. But it is requisite to employ sentences which are generally known and common, if they are useful for the purpose. For in consequence of being common, as being acknowledged by all men, they appear to be true. Thus he who exhorts soldiers to encounter danger, though they have not sacrificed, may employ what Hector says to Polydamas, Without a sign his sword the brave man draws, and asks no omen but his country's cause." And when those are exhorted to fight who are inferior to their opponents in force, it may be said, "In battle Mars to either side inclines." When any one likewise is exhorted to destroy the children of enemies, though they have done no injury, he may say, "He is a fool, who having destroyed the father, spares the children." Farther still, some proverbs are also sentences, such as the proverb, "An Attic stranger." Sentences likewise are to be sometimes adduced, contrary to those which are generally received. But I mean by those that are generally received, such as, "Know thyself," and "Nothing too much." And sentences contrary to these are to be adduced, when either the manners will from thence seem to be better, or when the thing is spoken pathetically. But a thing is spoken pathetically, if some one being enraged should say, "It is false that a man ought to know himself; for this man, if he had known himself, would never have solicited the command of the army." And the manners will appear to be better, if it is said, "That it is not proper, according to the assertion of Bias, to love as if intending hereafter to hate, but rather to hate as if intending hereafter to love." It is necessary, however, to render the choice manifest by the diction, but if not to subjoin the cause. Thus for instance, we may either thus speak, "That it is necessary to love, not as they say, but as if always intending to love; for the other [i.e. he who loves as if intending hereafter to hate,] loves like a treacherous person." Or thus, "What is generally asserted does not please me; for a true friend ought to love as one who will love always. Nor does that saying please me, nothing too much; for it is necessary to hate vehemently bad men." But these sentences afford great assistance to orations, one cause of which arises from the arrogance of the hearers. For they are delighted if any one speaking universally, happens to adduce opinions which they have formed about some particular things. My meaning, however, will be manifest from what follows, and at the same time it will be evident how these sentences are to be investigated. For a sentence is, as we have said, a universal enunciation ; but the auditors are delighted when that is universally asserted which they have preconceived partially. Thus for instance, if any one happens to have had bad neighbours or children, he will adopt the sentence, "That nothing is more troublesome than vicinity," and "That nothing is more stupid than the procreation of children." Hence it is necessary to conjecture what the opinion of the audience will be about particulars, and afterwards to adduce universal sentences conformable to their opinion. And this is one use which speaking sententiously ought to possess. But there is another use of it which is superior to this ; for it causes orations to become ethical, and those orations are ethical in which the deliberate intention of the speaker is manifest. All sentences, however, effect this, because he who employs the sentence speaks universally about things which are the objects of deliberate choice. Hence, if the sentences are good, they cause the speaker to appear to be one who possesses worthy manners. And thus much concerning a sentence, what it is, how many species there are of it, how sentences are to be employed, and what advantages they possess. CHAPTER 23. Let us now speak concerning enthymemes universally, after what manner they are to be investigated, and in the next place let us show what are the places of enthymemes. For there is a different species of each of these. That an enthymeme therefore is a certain syllogism, and how it is a syllogism, we have before shown, and also in what it differs from dialectic syllogisms. For neither ought things remote to be collected, nor are all things to be collectively assumed, since the former will be obscure from their length, and the latter will be nugatory, through speaking of things which are obvious. For this is the reason why the unlearned are more capable of producing persuasion among the crowd than the learned, since as the poets say, "The unlearned speak more elegantly to a mob." For the unlearned speak of things common and universal, which are adapted to the comprehension of the multitude ; but the learned speak of things which they know, and which are near. Hence, rhetorical enthymemes must not be composed from every thing which is probable, but from things of a definite nature, such as are those things which appear probable to the judges, or which the judges admit. Nor is it requisite that these things should be approved by all the auditors, but it is sufficient if they are approved by the greater part of them. It is likewise requisite not only to collect from things which are necessary, but also from things which have a frequency of subsistence. In the first place, therefore, it is necessary to assume that concerning the thing of which it is requisite to speak and syllogize, whether by employing a political or any other syllogism, concerning this it is necessary to possess all or some of the things which are inherent in it. For if we possess none of them, no conclusion can be made from nothing. I say for instance, how can we advise the Athenians to engage in war or not, unless we know what their power is, whether naval or land, or both, how great it is, what their revenue is, who are their friends and enemies, and farther still, what wars they have waged, and how they were carried on, and other things of the like kind. How likewise could we praise them if we were not acquainted with the naval battle at Salamis, or the battle at Marathon, or the deeds which they performed for the Heraclidae, or any thing else of the like kind? For all men praise others from beautiful transactions which exist, or appear to exist. In a similar manner also, in blaming the Athenians, we must direct our attention to the contraries to these things, considering what particular of a contrary kind pertains to them, or appears to pertain to them, such as that they enslaved the Greeks, and subdued those who fought with them against the barbarian, and behaved most intrepidly, viz. The Aegineta and Potidata, and other things of the like kind, and whatever other crime may be laid to their charge. Thus too, both those who accuse, and those who defend, accuse and defend by directing their attention to inherent particulars. But it makes no difference whether we speak of the Athenians or the Lacedaemonians, of God or man. For he who advises Achilles, who praises or blames, accuses or defends him, must assume things which are inherent, or appear to be inherent, that from these he may in praising or blaming show whether any thing beautiful in conduct or base is inherent, in accusing or defending may show whether any thing just or unjust is inherent, and in advising whether anything advantageous or detrimental is present. The like method must also be adopted in every other thing. Thus for instance, in investigating whether justice is good or not, our attention must be directed to what is inherent in justice or in good. Hence, since it appears that this method is adopted by all men, whether they syllogize more accurately or remissly, for their assumptions are not derived from all things, but from such as are inherent in each particular, and through reasoning, since it is evident that it is otherwise impossible to prove what they wish to prove, this being the case, it is obvious, as we have shown in the topics, that about each question in things contingent, and the time best adapted to them, it is necessary to have, in the first place, things of a more select nature. The investigation, likewise, must be made after the same manner in things of an unexpected nature, so that our attention must not be directed to the indefinite, but to things inherent, which are the subject of the oration. Of the things inherent, likewise, the greater part, and those which are nearest the subject, must be included in the oration. For by how much the greater the number of things inherent is which the orator possesses, by so much more easily will he prove that which he wishes to prove, and by how much more proximate the particulars are which he details, by so much the more appropriate will they be, and less common. But I call common things indeed such as to praise Achilles, because he is a man, and because he is among the number of demigods, and because he fought against Troy. For these particulars belong also to many others, so that praise of this kind no less pertains to Achilles than to Diomed. Things peculiar, however, are such as happen to no other person than Achilles, such as to have slain Hector, the bravest of the Trojans, and Cygnus, who being invulnerable prevented the Greeks from descending from their ships to the land ; and that being very young he entered into the army, though he was not bound by an oath to fight against the Trojans. These and other things of the like kind are peculiar to Achilles. This, therefore, is one place of selection, and is the first topical place. CHAPTER 24. Let us now speak of the elements of enthymemes. But I call the same thing the element and place of an enthymeme. Let us however first speak of those things which it is necessary in the first place to discuss. For there are two species of enthymemes, and the first species contains ostensive enthymemes, which show that a thing is or is not, but the other species is adapted to confutation. They differ also in the same manner as in dialectics an elenchus and syllogism differ. But an ostensive enthymeme is when the conclusion is collected from things acknowledged, and the enthymeme adapted to confutation is, when things not acknowledged are collected in the conclusion. Nearly, therefore, places have been delivered by us about each of the useful and necessary species ; for propositions respecting each have been selected. Hence we have shown from what places it is requisite to derive enthymemes about good or evil, the beautiful or the base, the just or the unjust ; and in a similar manner places have been assigned by us concerning manners, passions, and habits. Again, therefore, it remains, that after another manner we should assume universally concerning all the three genera of orations, indicating which of them are adapted to confutation, and are ostensive, and what are the places of apparent enthymemes, but which are not enthymemes in reality, since neither are they syllogisms. But these things being rendered manifest, we shall discuss solutions and objections, and show whence it is requisite to adduce these against enthymemes. One place, therefore, of ostensive enthymemes is from contraries, for it is necessary to consider whether one contrary is inherent in another, subverting indeed if it be not inherent, but confirming if it is inherent. For instance, we may thus show that to act temperately is good, for to act intemperately is noxious, or as in the Messenic oration of Alcidamas. For if war is the cause of the present evils, it is necessary to correct those evils with peace. For as a certain tragic poet argues in Greek Sceneries, if it is not just to fall into anger with those who have done evil willingly, neither is it fit if any one has acted beneficently from compulsion to be grateful to him. But if to speak falsely is, among mortals, calculated to persuade, it is requisite to think that on the contrary many things are true, which are considered by mortals as incredible. Another place is from similar cases, for it is necessary that they should be similarly inherent, or not inherent. Thus from this place it may be shown that not every thing which is just is good. For if every thing just were eligible and good, every thing which is justly done would be eligible and good. But now to die justly is not eligible. Another place is from relatives. For if some one has acted well or justly, another has suffered well or justly. And if to command is just, it is also just to obey the command. As the publican Diomedon said about the tributes, For, said he to the people, it is not disgraceful in you to sell the tributes, neither is it disgraceful in us to buy them. And if one man deservedly and justly suffers a loss, he who caused him to suffer it acted well and justly. And if he who caused another to suffer a loss acted well and justly, he who sustained the loss sustained it well and justly. In this place, however, it is possible to paralogize. For if a man died justly, he suffered justly, but perhaps not by you. Hence it is necessary to consider separately whether he who suffered deserved to suffer, and whether he who did the thing deserved to do it, and thus to infer what is adapted and appropriate. For sometimes a thing of this kind is dissonant, and nothing impedes, as in the Alcmaeon of Theodectes, Did never any mortal hate thy mother? To which the answer is, distinctly this must be considered." Alphesiba also inquiring, "How therefore have the judges condemned thee?" Alcmaeon answered, "Of death deserving she was judged, but I, 'twas said, could not have slain my mother." Thus likewise on the trial of Demosthenes, and those who slew Nicanor, because they were judged to have slain him justly, it appeared that he was justly put to death. In like manner, when a certain person was slain at Thebes, it was inquired in the court of justice whether he had been unjustly slain, as if it were not unjust to slay him who deserved to die. Another place is from the more and the less, such as if even the gods do not know all things, much less do men. For the meaning of this is, if the more is not inherent in that in which it ought to be more inherent, it is evident that neither will it be inherent in that in which the less is inherent. But this place, that he will strike his neighbour who strikes his father, depends on this, that if the less is inherent, the more also will be inherent. And this place is useful for both purposes, viz. Whether it be requisite to show that a thing is inherent, or is not. Farther still, if a thing is inherent, neither more nor less. Whence it is said in a certain tragedy, "Is thy father to be pitied, because he has lost a son? And is not Aeneas to be equally commiserated, who has lost his son Meleager, one of the most illustrious of the Greeks?" And that if Theseus did not act unjustly in ravaging Helen, neither did Paris. And if the Tyndarida, i.e. Castor and Pollux, did not act unjustly in ravishing the daughters of Leucippus, neither did Paris. Likewise, if Hector did not act unjustly in slaying Patroclus, neither did Paris in slaying Achilles. And if other artists are not vile men, neither are philosophers. And if generals are not vile, because they are frequently conquered, neither are sophists. And that if a private person ought to be careful of your renown, you also ought to be careful of the renown of the Greeks. Another place consists in the consideration of time, as is exemplified in what Iphicrates says in his oration against Harmodius. For said he, "If before I had done the thing, I had demanded a statue in case I did it, you would have granted it to me. And will you not grant it, now I have done the thing? You would not, therefore, when expecting a benefit, promise a reward, and refuse it, when you have received the benefit." And again, for the purpose of persuading that the Thebans ought to permit Philip to pass through their land into Attica, it may be said, "That if he had made this request before he sent you assistance against the Phocenses, you would have permitted it. It is absurd, therefore, that because he then neglected to ask permission, and trusted you would grant it, that you should now deny it to him." Another place is taken from things said and reported on the speaker. And this mode is eminently useful, and was employed in the tragedy of Teucrus by Iphicrates against Aristophon, when he inquired of him whether he would have betrayed the ships for money. And when Aristophon denied that he would, Iphicrates afterwards said, "You therefore, being Aristophon, would not have betrayed them, and should I, being Iphicrates, have betrayed them?" It is necessary, however, that he who is opposed should appear to have acted more unjustly than the opponent. For if not, it would seem to be ridiculous, if any one had said this against Aristides accusing who was in every respect worthy of belief, and which ought to have been said against an accuser, who did not deserve to be credited. For in short, the plaintiff ought to be considered as better than the defendant. He therefore who opposes another should always reprobate this. And universally, that which is said is absurd, when any one who reproves others in things which he himself does, or would have done if he could, or who persuades others to do those things which he himself does not do, nor would have done. Another place is derived from definition. Such for instance as, That which is demoniacal is nothing else than either God or the work of God ; but whoever thinks that it is the work of God, must necessarily think that there are gods." And as Iphicrates said against a certain person named Harmodius, He who is the best of men is most generous or noble ; for there was nothing generous in Harmodius and Aristogiton till they had accomplished some generous undertaking." He added that he was more allied to, i.e. he more resembled the ancient Harmodius. For my works," said he, Are more allied to the works of Harmodius and Aristogiton than thine." And as in the oration concerning Paris, All men will confess that those who are intemperate are not satisfied with the enjoyment of one body." Hence Socrates said that he would not go to Archelaus king of Macedonia, For it is disgraceful," said he, For him who has received a benefit, not to be able to recompense him from whom he received it, just as it is disgraceful in him who has been used ill, not to return the ill treatment." For all these, defining and assuming what a thing is, syllogize about the things which are the subjects of their speech. Another place is derived from multiplicity of diction, as in the Topics, an argument is derived from that which has a rectitude of subsistence, being multifariously predicated. Another place is derived from division, as if all men act unjustly for the sake of three things. For they act unjustly either for the sake of this, viz. Utility, or for the sake of this, viz. Pleasure, or for the sake of this, viz. Because they are enraged. But for the sake of two of these they could not do the injury, and the opponents themselves confess they did not do it for the sake of the third. Another place is from induction, as from the oration inscribed Peparthia, in which it is said, That women every where determine truly about the birth of children." For this is evident from what happened at Athens ; since when Mantius the rhetorician was dubious about his son, his doubts were dissolved by the mother of the child. This likewise happened at Thebes. For when Ismenes and Stilbo contended which of them was the father of Thessalicus, Dodonis demonstrated that he was the son of Ismenes, and on this account Thessalicus was considered as the offspring of Ismenes. And again, from the law of Theodectes, if no one would commit his horses to the care of those who do not pay a proper attention to the horses of others, nor his ships to those who destroy the ships of others, and if the like takes place in all things, we ought not to commit our safety to those who have badly attended to the safety of others. And as Alcidamas says, That all men honour the wise." For the Parians honour Archilochus, though he blasphemed them ; and the Chians honour Homer, though he was not their fellow citizen ; and the Mitlennans Sappho, though she was a woman. The Lacedaemonians also, though they were in the smallest degree philologists, made Chilo one of their senators. The Italians likewise honoured Pythagoras. And the Lampsaceni buried Anaxagoras, though he was a stranger, and honour him even now. Again, the Athenians by using the laws of Solon were happy, and the Lacedaemonians by using those of Lycurgus. The city of the Thebans also, as soon as philosophers were their governors, became happy. Another place is derived from the judgment made about the same, or a similar, or a contrary thing. And this indeed is especially the case if it is the judgment of all men, and always, but if not, if it is the judgment of most men, or of all, or the greater part of wise men, or of good men, or if it is the decision of those who are judges, or of those whom the judges approve, or of those against whom there is no judgment to be given, as of princes, or of those whose judgment it is not becoming to oppose, such as the gods, a father, or preceptors. But of this place there are many examples, and one is what Autocles said against Mixidemides, If it were well indeed for the venerable goddesses, the Furies, to plead their cause in the Areopagus, can it be improper for Mixidemides to do so?" Another is what Sappho said, That to die is an evil, for the gods have judged it to be so, since otherwise they themselves would die." Another is what Aristippus said against Plato, asserting something as he thought too positively. But our associate, said he, meaning Socrates, affirms no such thing." Another example is that of Agesipolis, who at Delphi inquired of the god Apollo, having prior to this consulted the oracle of Jupiter Olympus, Whether the son was of the same opinion as the father?" As if it were shameful for a son to dissent from his father. Another is that of Isocrates concerning Helen, who shows that she was a worthy character, because Theseus judged her to be so, and who also says the same thing of Paris, because the goddesses preferred his judgment to that of other men. He likewise asserts that Evagoras was a worthy character, because Conon, when his affairs were adverse, leaving every one else, came to Evagoras." Another place is from the enumeration of parts, as in the Topics, where it is inquired, What kind of motion the soul is," for it is either this or that, viz. It must either be the motion which is a change in quality, or relation, or argumentation, or generation. An example of this place is from Theodex, in his oration in defence of Socrates when he was accused by the judges, What temple has Socrates violated? And what gods has he not reverenced among those whose honours are legally established by the city?" Another place is from consequent good or evil. For since in most things it happens that some good and evil are consequent to them, we may employ consequent good for the purpose of persuading, praising, and defending, but consequent evils for the purpose of dissuading, blaming, and accusing. Thus for instance, we may blame literary pursuits, because envy is consequent to erudition, which is an evil, and we may also praise them, because they are attended with wisdom, which is a good. Hence, in the former case, we may say that it is not proper to acquire erudition, because it is not proper to be envied, but in the latter, that it is proper to acquire erudition, for it is requisite to be wise. In this place the art of the rhetorician Callippus consists, to which he added what pertains to the possible, and other things, of which we have already spoken. Another place is, when about two things, and those opposed to each other, it is requisite either to exhort or dissuade, and to use the before mentioned place in both ways. But it differs from that place in this, that there casual things are opposed, but here contraries only. Thus for instance, a certain priest would not suffer his son to speak in public, For if, said he, You speak what is just, men will hate you, but if what is unjust, the gods. It is necessary, however, on the other hand to speak in public, for if you speak what is just, the gods will love you, but if what is unjust, men will love you. This, however, is the same thing with the saying of buying oil and salt. And this argument may be retorted, when to each of two contraries good and evil are consequent, each being contrary to each. Another place is, because the same things are not praised openly and secretly, but just and beautiful things are especially praised openly, and privately men are more inclined to praise what is advantageous. One of these, therefore, we must endeavour to collect, for this place is the most principal of paradoxes. Another place is derived from analogy, and was used by Iphicrates, For when the Athenians wished to compel his younger son, because he was large, to engage in public service, Iphicrates said, That if great boys were to be considered as men, little men should be decreed to be boys." And Theodectes in the law said, You have made mercenaries, such as Strabuses and Charidemus, citizens on account of their probity, but you have not made exiles of those among the mercenaries who have acted nefariously." Another place is, when, in consequence of the same thing following from two things, it is shown that the things from which it happens to follow are the same ; as when Xenophanes said, That those were similarly impious who assert that the gods were generated, and those who assert that they die. For in both ways it happens that at a certain time the gods do not exist." And in short, that which happens from each is always to be assumed as the same. This place was also used by some one in the defence of Socrates ; for he said, You are about to pass sentence, not on Socrates, but on his pursuit, whether it be requisite to philosophize." And it may be said, That to give earth and water is to become slaves, and that to participate of common peace is to do what is commanded to be done." But whichever of these is useful must be assumed. Another place is derived from this, that the same men do not always choose the same thing in a posterior or prior time, but conversely, as in this enthymeme, If when we were exiles we fought, in order that we might return, shall we, having returned, fly in order that we may not fight ? For at one time the Athenians chose to fight, that they might return to their country ; and at another time they were unwilling to leave their country, lest they should be obliged to fight. Another place is, when we affirm any thing to have been done on account of some cause, through which it might have been done, though it was not in reality done through it ; as if one man should give something to another, in order that by afterwards taking it away, he may give him pain. Hence also it is said in a certain tragedy, The demon gives great prosperity to many, yet not with a benevolent intention, but in order that they may receive more conspicuous calamities." And in the Meleager of Antiphon, who, that he might praise Meleager, says, There was a concourse of people from all Greece, not for the purpose of killing the boar, but that they might be witnesses of the valour of Meleager." Another example is from the Ajax of Theodectes, in which it is said, That Diomed preferred Ulysses as his associate in the nocturnal adventure, not for the purpose of honouring him, but that he might have one to attend him who was his inferior. For it is possible he might have thus acted with this view. Another place is common both to litigants and counsellors, and consists in considering whatever pertains to exhortation and dissuasion, and for the sake of which things are done and avoided. For these are such as ought to be done when they are present. For instance, it must be considered whether a thing is possible and easy to be effected, and whether it is beneficial, either to a man himself, or to his friends, or whether it is noxious and pernicious to his enemies, or is at least attended with greater emolument than loss. And exhortations are to be derived from these places, and dehortations from the contraries. From the same places also accusations and defences may be derived. Defence, indeed, from those which pertain to dissuasion, but accusation from those which pertain to exhortation. And in this place the whole art of Pamphilus and Callippus consists. Another place is derived from things which appear indeed to be done, but are incredible, because they would not be credited unless they were, or nearly were in existence, and this in an eminent degree. For whatever is done is apprehended to be done, either because it has been truly done, or is of itself credible and probable. If therefore a thing is incredible and not probable, it will be true that it has been done. For it does not appear to have been done in consequence of being probable and credible. Thus Androcles Pythius accusing the law said, the multitude being tumultuous whilst he was speaking, The laws require a law to correct them. For fishes also require salt, though it may seem neither probable nor credible that animals nourished in salt should require salt. And olives require oil, though it may seem incredible that those things from which oil is produced should be in want of oil. Chapter 25. Another place which is adapted to confutation is derived from considering things which are not assented to, viz. From considering if any thing is not admitted from all times, actions, and speeches. And this indeed may be done separately in the person of the opponent, as, He says that he loves you Athenians, and yet he has conspired with the 30 tyrants against his country. And separately, as to the person himself, as, He says indeed that I am litigious, but he cannot show that I ever sued any man. It may also be done separately, both as to the person himself and his opponent, as, And this man indeed never lent any money, but I have ransomed many of you. Another place is useful with respect to men and things that have been calumniated, but which do not appear to have deserved it. And this consists in assigning the cause of the paradox. For there is something which gave rise to the appearance. Thus for instance, a certain woman was calumniated with reference to her son, for in consequence of embracing him, it seemed as if she had connexion with the lad. But the cause of her embracing him being assigned, the calumny was dissolved. Thus too in the Ajax of Theodex, Ulysses says against Ajax, that though he is braver than Ajax, yet he does not seem to be so. Another place is derived from cause, which if it exists, the effect also exists, but if it is not, neither does the effect exist. For cause, and that of which it is the cause, subsist together, and nothing is without a cause. Thus Ledimus, in defending himself, when Thrasybulus accusing him said, That his name has been branded with infamy on a pillar in the Acropolis, but the inscription had been erased by the 30 tyrants, replied, That this was not possible, for if it had taken place, the 30 tyrants would have placed more confidence in him, in consequence of his hatred to the people having been inscribed on a pillar. Another place is from considering whether it was or is possible to advise, or do, or have done a thing better than it was advised to be, or is, or was done. For it is evident that if it does not thus subsist, it was not done, since no one willingly and knowingly deliberately chooses what is bad. This place, however, is false, for frequently it becomes afterwards evident how it was possible to have acted better, though this was before immanifest. Another place is derived from considering when something is intended to be done, contrary to what has been done. Thus Xenophanes, when the Eleans asked him, whether they should sacrifice to Leucothea and lament her or not, advised them, if they thought her a goddess, not to lament her, but if a mortal, not to sacrifice to her. Another place is derived from accusing or defending errors. Thus for instance in the Meda of the poet Carcinus, some persons accuse her of having slain her children because they no longer appear (for Meda erred in sending away her sons), but she defends herself by saying, that if she had intended to commit murder, she would not have slain her children, but Jason, for in not slaying Jason, she would have acted wrong, even if she had done the other thing, i.e. slain her children. This place, however, and species of enthymeme formed the whole prior rhetorical art of Theodorus. Another place is derived from name, as Sophocles of a certain woman named Sidero, "'Tis clear thou iron art, and bear'st the name." Thus also it is usual to celebrate the gods from the signification of their names. Conon likewise called Thrasybulus audacious, and Herodicus said of Thrasymachus, "Thou art always Thrasymachus, i.e. bold in fight." He also said of Polus, "You are always Polus, i.e. a colt." Herodicus likewise said of Draco the legislator, "That his laws were not the laws of a man, but of a dragon, for they were severe." Another example is derived from what Hecuba says in the Troades of Euripides when speaking of Venus, "And the name of the goddess, i.e. Aphrodite, is rightly derived from Aphrosoon, i.e. folly." And as Choeremon the comic poet says, "Pentheus was so denominated from future calamity." Those enthymemes, however, which are adapted to confutation are more approved than those that are ostensive, because the former are short collections of contraries, but parallels are more obvious to the hearer. Of all syllogisms, however, as well those that are adapted to confutation, as those that are ostensive, those especially excite perturbation in the auditors, which manifest themselves as soon as they begin to be enunciated, yet not because their meaning is superficial. For the auditors are at the same time delighted that they foresaw from the beginning what would follow. This likewise is the case with those syllogisms which are understood as soon as they are completely enunciated. CHAPTER 26. Since, however, it is possible that one thing may be a syllogism and another not, but only appear to be so, it is likewise necessary with respect to an enthymeme that this should be, and that should not be, but should only appear to be an enthymeme, since an enthymeme also is a certain syllogism. But there are places of apparent enthymemes, one indeed in the diction, and of this, one part, as in dialectics, is, when though nothing is syllogistically concluded, yet at the last it is inferred. It is not therefore this, or that, or it necessarily is this, or that. What also is said in enthymemes contortly and oppositely appears to be an enthymeme, though it is not so in reality. For such a diction is the receptacle of enthymeme, and a thing of this kind appears to be from the figure of the diction. For the purpose, however, of speaking syllogistically in the diction, it is useful to produce the heads of many syllogisms, as, "These he saved, others he avenged, but he liberated the Greeks." For each of these is demonstrated from others, but from the conjunction of these something appears to be effected. Another place of apparent enthymemes is derived from equivocation, as if some one should say, "That a mouse is a worthy animal, for the mysteries are the most honourable of all initiatory rites." Or if some one making an encomium on a dog, should also comprehend in his encomium the celestial dog, or the god Pan, because Pindar says, "O blessed, whom the Olympiad gods call the all various dog of the great goddess." Or if it should be said, "That it is most dishonourable there should be no dog, so that it is evident that a dog is honourable." And to say, "That Hermes is the most communicative of all the gods, for he alone is called common Hermes." Likewise to say, "That Logos [speech] is most worthy, because good men are worthy not of riches, but of Logos speech." For to be worthy of Logos is most simply predicated. Another place consists in speaking things which are separated conjunctively, or things which are conjoined disjunctively. For since each of these modes of speaking appears to be the same, though frequently it is not the same, it is requisite to adopt whichever of these is more useful. The first example of this place is that of Euthydemus, To know, being in Sicily, that there is a three*banked galley in the Piraeus." Another example is, That he who knows the elements of a verse knows the verse, for a verse is the same thing," as the elements from which it is composed. Another example of this place is, That since twice so much of a thing is noxious, neither can the half of that quantity be said to be salubrious. For it is absurd, if two things are good, that one of them should be bad." Thus, therefore, this place is useful for the purpose of confutation. But it is ostensive as follows, For one good is not two evils." In short, this place is paralogistic. Again, another example is that of Polycrates respecting Thrasybulus, That he deposed the 30 tyrants," for this is conjunctive. Or what is said in the Orestes of Theodex, for it is from division, or is disjunctive, viz. It is just that she who killed her husband should die, and it is also just that a son should revenge his father. It is just, therefore, that the mother Clytemnestra should be slain by the son Orestes." For if these sentences are conjoined, the conclusion perhaps will no longer be just. In this sophism, likewise, there is a fallacy of defect ; for it is not expressed by whom it is just that the mother should be slain. Another place consists in confirming or confuting by exaggeration. And this is when a man, not showing that he has done a certain deed, amplifies the thing. For thus he causes it to appear either that he has not done the deed when he who defends the cause amplifies, or that he did it when the accuser was enraged. Hence, it is not an enthymeme ; for the hearer falsely collects that he has or has not done the deed, the thing not being demonstrated. Another place is derived from a sign ; for this also is unsyllogistic ; as if some one should say, Lovers are advantageous to cities, for the love of Harmodius and Aristogiton deposed the tyrant Hipparchus. And likewise if some one should say, That Dionysius was a thief, for he was a depraved character. For this is unsyllogistic, since not every depraved character is a thief, but every thief is a depraved character. Another place is derived from that which is accidental, as in what Polycrates said of the mice, That they aided the city by gnawing the bowstrings of the enemy." Or if some one should say that to be invited to supper is a most honourable thing. For Achilles, in consequence of not being invited, was enraged against the Greeks in Tenedos. But he, as being despised, was angry, and this happened because he was not invited. Another place is derived from that which is consequent, as for instance in what is said of Paris, That he was magnanimous, for despising an association with the multitude, he dwelt in Mount Ida by himself. For because magnanimous men are lovers of solitude, Paris also may appear to be magnanimous. And, Since a certain person decorates himself and wanders by night, he is an adulterer, because adulterers also are men of this kind. In a similar manner, it may be proved that mendicants and exiles are happy, because mendicants sing and dance in temples, and because it is permitted exiles to dwell where they please. For because these things are present with those that appear to be happy, those also to whom these things are present may seem to be happy. There is here, however, a difference in the mode, on which account this example falls into defect, i. e. it is a fallacy of defect. Another place is derived from that which is causeless as if it were a cause, as when that which is done together with another thing, or after it, is assumed as if it had been done for the sake of it. And this place is especially used by politicians, as by Demades, who said, That the administration of Demosthenes was the cause of all evils, since war happened after it." Another place is derived from a deficiency in the time when, and the manner in which a thing is done ; such for instance as this, That Paris justly ravished Helen, for the choice was given to Helen of marrying whom she pleased." For perhaps this choice was not given to her always, but at first, and the authority of her father over her extended so far as to this. Or as if some one should say, That to strike freemen is insolence," for it is not entirely so, but when he who strikes was not provoked. Farther still, another place is when in litigious disputes an apparent syllogism is produced from that which is simply, and that which is not simply ; as in dialectics it is shown that non*being is being, for non*being is non*being. And it is also shown that what is unknown is the object of science ; for the unknown is the object of science, because it is unknown, [i. e. because it is known that it is unknown.] Thus also in orations there is an apparent enthymeme from that which is not simply probable, but is a certain probable thing. This probability, however, does not take place universally, as Agatho also says, Perhaps some one may say that this is probable, that many things which are not probable happen to mortals." For that which is unlikely happens. Hence, what is unlikely is likely. But if this be the case, that which is not probable is probable. This, however, is not simply true, but as in contentious arguments a fallacy is produced, when a limitation restraining to a part, to a place, to a time, or a signifying relation, is not added. So here, that which is improbable is not simply probable, but is a certain probability. But the art of Corax is composed from this place ; for whether the person be not obnoxious to the crime, as he who is weak escapes an action for an assault, for it is not likely that he committed an assault ; or whether he be obnoxious, as being a strong man, he has the same defence, unless a certain probability is apparent. And the like takes place in other things. For a man must necessarily be obnoxious to the crime or not. Both therefore appear to be probable, and the one is indeed probable in reality, but the other not simply, but in the way we have shown. And this it is to make the inferior argument to be superior. Hence men were justly indignant with what Protagoras professed to accomplish. For what he announced is false, and not true, but is apparently probable, and exists in no art but in the rhetorical and contentious. And thus much concerning enthymemes, both the true and the apparent. CHAPTER XXVII. It now follows that we should speak concerning the solutions of enthymemes. But it is possible to dissolve them by contrary reasoning, or by introducing an objection. With respect to contrary reasoning, therefore, it is evident that it may be effected from the same places. For syllogisms are composed from things that are probable, but many probable things appear to be contrary to each other. But objections are introduced in the same manner as in the topics, in 4 ways ; for they are introduced either from the same, or from the similar, or from the contrary, or from the judgment and authority of others. By an objection, however, being introduced from the same, I mean as if for instance the enthymeme should be concerning love, that it is a worthy thing, an objection may be made to it in a twofold respect. For either it may be said universally that all indigence is evil, or partially that it would not be proverbially said conus love, unless there was also base love. But an objection is introduced from the contrary, when if the enthymeme should be, that a good man benefits all his friends." It may be objected, "that neither does a bad man act ill towards all his friends." An objection also is introduced from similars, when the enthymeme is, "that those who receive an injury always hate the authors of it." For it may be objected, "that neither do those who are benefited always love their benefactor." And objections which are introduced from the judgments of illustrious men are as if the enthymeme were, "that it is requisite to pardon those who are intoxicated, for they err ignorantly." The objection is, "that Pittacus, therefore, does not deserve to be praised ; for he should not have legally established greater punishments for intoxication, if he who is intoxicated errs through ignorance." Enthymemes, however, are derived from four things, and these four are the probable, example, tecmerion, [i. e. a necessary sign,] and a sign, not necessary. But those enthymemes which are collected from things that exist for the most part, or appear to exist, are derived from probabilities. Those which are derived from the similar, either from one or many similar things (when the orator, assuming what is universal, syllogistically collects what is particular), exist through example. But those which exist through what is necessary and real, are through tecmerion. And those that exist through what is universal or particular, whether it really is or not, are through signs which are not necessary. But a probable thing is that which does not exist always, but for the most part. Hence it is manifest that enthymemes of this kind may always be dissolved, if an objection is introduced. The solution, however, is sometimes apparent, and not always true. For he who objects does not dissolve the enthymeme by showing that the thing is not probable, but by showing that it is not necessary. Hence, the defendant has always the advantage of the plaintiff through this paralogism. For since the plaintiff demonstrates through probabilities, but the solution is not the same which shows either that the thing is not probable, or that it is not necessary, and that which exists for the most part is always liable to objection (for otherwise it would not be a probability, but would be always necessary). Hence the judge, if this mode of solution is adopted, will think either that the thing is not probable, or that it must not be judged by him, in consequence, as we have said, of being deceived by false reasoning. For it is requisite that he should not only judge from things which are necessary, but also from probabilities ; for this is to judge most judiciously. The solution, therefore, of an enthymeme is not sufficient, which shows that a thing is not necessary ; but it is requisite that the solution should also show that it is not probable. But this will happen if the objection rather shows that the thing for the most part subsists. It is possible, however, that a thing may happen for the most part, or frequently in a twofold respect, viz. Either from time, or from circumstances, but principally if from both. For if things which frequently happen thus subsist, this is more probable ; but signs which are not necessary, and enthymemes derived through a sign, are solved in the way we mentioned in the first book. For that every such sign is unsyllogistic is evident to us from the Analytics. Enthymemes, however, derived from examples are solved after the same manner as enthymemes derived from probabilities. For if we can adduce a contrary example in which the thing is not so, the enthymeme is solved, because the thing is not necessary, or because many things have happened frequently, and in a different manner. But if many things have happened frequently, and in this manner, then it must be contended either that the present circumstance is not similar, or is not similarly disposed, or has a certain difference. Tecmeria, however, [i. e. necessary signs,] and enthymemes, which are of the nature of tecmeria, cannot be solved in consequence of being unsyllogistic. But this is evident to us from the Analytics. It remains, therefore, to show that what is said viz. That certain premises do not exist. But if it is evident that the premises do exist, and that the enthymeme is derived from tecmerion, then the enthymeme becomes insoluble ; for all things now become apparent from demonstration. CHAPTER XXVIII. To amplify, however, and diminish are not the elements of an enthymeme. For I call the same thing an element and a place. For an element, as also a place, is that into which many enthymemes fall. But to amplify and diminish are enthymemes for the purpose of showing that a thing is great or small, as likewise that it is good or evil, just or unjust, or any thing else. And all these are the things with which syllogisms and enthymemes are conversant. So that if no one of these is the place of an enthymeme, neither are amplification and diminution. Neither are enthymemes which have the power of solving the arguments of the opponent, any other species of enthymeme than those which are employed in confirmation. For it is evident that he solves the arguments of his opponent, who either shows the contrary to what his opponent asserts, or introduces an objection. But he proves the opposite. Thus, if one shows that a thing has been done, the other shows that it has not been done. And if one shows that it has not, the other shows that it has been done. So that here, indeed, there will be no differences, for both use the same enthymemes, since they introduce enthymemes to show that the thing is or is not. An objection, however, is not an enthymeme, but (as we have shown in the Topics), it is to declare a certain opinion, from which it will be evident that the conclusion is not syllogistical, or that something false has been assumed. And thus much has been said by us respecting examples and sentences, and in short respecting what pertains to the reasoning power, whence we may abound with enthymemes, and how we may solve them. It now remains to discuss what pertains to diction and order. End of Book 2. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards.